How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final time. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
What up, everyone? Happy Thursday. What a week, man. What a week. What a week. I was up until 5 a.m. last night editing video. Because yesterday, when we did our stream, and I want to thank the intrepid warriors from yesterday's stream, because yesterday's stream was something else. Yesterday, we started watching some recordings from a series of workshops that were held at the City University of New York through the Center for LGBTQ Studies, or CLAGS, as they call it. And we were watching some of their workshops, and, well, it turns out that bootlicking is anti-capitalist, which I'm going to show you guys a clip of. And the thing of it is, though, is that, you know, oftentimes when we get access to recordings like this, socialists suck at technology. Socialists explicitly suck at sound. Sound is a constant problem. And so the sound in the video yesterday for the reverence session about bootlicking, of which we got many great clips, the sound was a little wonky on the stream. And, you know, I couldn't do anything about it on the stream because I'm live on the stream. I'm dealing with their sound. It's not my fault. I didn't have anything to do with it. But I felt really bad because the sound was legitimately an issue yesterday. There was just nothing I could do about it. And so I decided to stay up until 5 a.m. and I edited together a whole video of yesterday's workshop with the sound amped up from the original video. So basically what I had to do is I had to go download the original video, which I already had anyway. I boosted the sound in the original video, and then I overlaid the original video with the stream yesterday so we could style my reactions, because we gotta be honest, my reactions were like on point yesterday, and I didn't want to lose them. And so I did fix the video, but man, it was a long ass night. It was a long night, but I felt like this is something that is important to preserve. This is one of those moments where I'm like, yeah, Karlyn, this is going to suck, but this is a workshop that you need to actually have a quality recording of this workshop, because we literally saw the City University of New York yesterday do a workshop about bootlicking fetish within the BDSM queer kink community. And they were talking about fisting, and they were talking about bootlicking being anti-capitalist. And it was just a really, it was something. And so I wanted to make sure we had a really good recording of it. Now, just in case you weren't here yesterday, do you guys mind if I play a highlight reel from the event? Just in case you weren't here, or just in case you thought the sound sucked and you couldn't hear it or any of that, do you guys mind before we get into our main show? And we are going to be talking about the American Communist Party today, so I'll address this super chat in a little bit. I appreciate it, though. We are going to be talking about the American Communist Party today, but I thought, just for people who missed it, or for people who, you know, maybe you didn't want to sit through the shitty sound, I put together a highlight reel, and I thought we would start off with that. And this highlight reel is pinned to the top of my Twitter, so I do have a whole thread about this on my Twitter with some of the clips, but I did actually put together a legit highlight reel that we're going to be watching. It's about 15 minutes long. And I'm gonna put the link. Actually, let me do the link to the whole Twitter thread. If you guys are on Twitter as we are watching the highlight reel for the presentation yesterday, could you guys do me a solid and could you tweet out this thread? Like, quote tweet it, bookmark it, do all the things, share it, reply to it. When you do things like bookmarking posts and replying to posts and retweeting posts and quote tweeting posts, bookmarking and replying to posts are really important for the YouTube algorithm. So even if you don't have a large account, or not YouTube, the Twitter algorithm, even if you don't have a large account on Twitter, if you just bookmark and retweet and then reply to things I post, that actually really does help me out regardless of your follower count. So if everyone could take a minute and retweet that thread, that would be pretty great, because God knows conservative influencers aren't going to share it because they're all in their feelings about me. Conservative influencers only share things that are actual news and actual problems if they like you. It's so fucking middle school. It's ridiculous. But we can share it and we can get the information out there. Anyway, I'm going to play the highlight reel from yesterday's stream. So let's dig in, and then we will watch our American Communist Party stuff. But I really do feel like everyone needs to see this. Okay, here you go. Yeah. Is this about them licking shoes? Is that what this is about? Is that what boot blocking? Are they licking shoes?
Of the Power of Leather series. It's a series of in-person dialogues, interactive performances, and community events exploring leather sex, sadomasochism, and leather culture.
They're all dressed in leather.
The series has been presented by CLAGS, the Center for LGBTQ Studies at CUNY, and organized by us, Laura Westgard, that's me, and Sparks. Your enthusiasm for these conversations, located at the center of Pervert Smarty Venn diagram, meant that we filled the halls of the CUNY Graduate Center with a sexiness factor the likes of which they had never seen. So thank you for coming to Midtown in your fetish wear. Woo!
Somebody being able to just give you physical touch. I think post-COVID, we really.
She's not wearing pants. She's like, what the fuck? Why do I see this woman's ass? Why do I? This is a college. Why do I see this woman's ass?
Anybody else?
So I'm also one of Daddy Katie's children. But I came into bootblacking through the puppy scene originally. And so for me, it is all about the licking. And so I think a lot of people will do one boot all the way through and then the other all the way through. I actually prefer to, clean and then clean, condition and then condition, polish and then polish, and then I can just fully throw myself into fully throw myself into licking, so I don't have to get into that zone and then come back out of it.
Cool.
So I think the way you'd know it was me is you'd have to be like, okay, that's enough licking. I have other stuff to do.
I don't think I would say that though. Tamara?
Tamara, do you have an answer?
What the fuck?
I love that question. I mean, I would second the licking. You know, maybe with consent, my face might be under your shoe at some point. You know, that's all on the table. But I'm used to doing so many things where you're chatting and doing your technical work at the same time. So I'm also really here just for a little kiki, a little conversation back and forth.
All right, Tamara, how can you be anti-materialist and anti-capitalist while practicing the worship of an object and material that is usually a consumer product?
Winner, I win the internet. How can you be anti-capitalist while licking a fucking boot? Can I get a series of Karlyn was right in the chat, please? How can you be anti-capitalist while licking a fucking boot? Just snuck right up on me. Again.
All right, Tamara, how can you be anti-materialist and anti-capitalist while practicing the worship of an object and material that is usually a consumer product?
I love this heady ass question.
Folks would like me to repeat the question, which I am more than happy to do. So, Tamara, how can you be anti-materialist and anti-capitalist and practice the worship of an object and material that is usually a consumer product?
I love this question because, you know, there's something. I'm a Taurus, right? And so I know very well that like collector culture, we're all nerds. We love the attraction of a shiny thing, of wanting to have, you know, the newest, the shiniest, the most exciting thing, right? I've definitely been, you know, fallen victim to that myself. But so much of this work about this practice and about this community is about developing a relationship beyond the object, and to having a relationship of reciprocity in a sense, where it's not just about, you know, what your leather can do for you, even though it does do so much for us, but what you can do for your leather, and about learning caretaking, learning repair, learning to extend the life of things, having a curiosity about how something is made versus taking for granted that you can buy a new one or that another one will show up to you, because so many of the objects that we collect, that we have relationships with, that we wear, that we play with, take on a life beyond, you know, their place of origin, the material that they're made of, and for that reason, leather community has such a practice of generosity. You know, I could wear something for 10 years and pass it on to somebody that I love and love it enough to let it go, and so I see those things happening so in tandem with one another and being very inherent to the spirit of leather and of the material relationship.
Leather belongs to the collective. They're the caretakers of the leather, and it belongs to the collective. Therefore, it is not capitalist.
I am so excited to add to this question. Boot blacking is inherently political and anti-capitalist.
Yes! I'm totally having an orgasm right now. I'm not, like, that was so inadvertent. Someone's gonna clip that out of context bad. Can we just rewind and listen to that again? Thank you. Boot blacking is inherently political and inherently anti-capitalist. That was so good. That was the best orgasm I've had all week.
I am so excited to add to this question. Boot blacking is inherently political and anti-capitalist because we are keeping these leathers, these textiles, these items out of the landfill. We are preserving the history of those items to be passed on, to be kept in your closet. So what better use of your time and skill by keeping things for our community and for our memory? I taught a class, or I would say mostly had a discussion the other day that really talked about whole animal theory. So there is a Black and indigenous practice of using all parts of the animal. You eat the meat, you keep its hide, you can wear its fur, you use its oils and fats to condition the same hide that you're gonna be wearing. And when we think about that as like, these are practices that are really ingrained in who we are, what we're doing is simply just like preserving and practicing what are kind of our right to do as people. It's the correct thing to do. You shouldn't just eat the animal and discard it and not take care of it and preserve it. Like that animal made a sacrifice. You keep showing appreciation and honor to that sacrifice of that animal. And then political, because what we're doing, I mean, whether it's sexual or not, whether it's kinky or not, whether it's whatever you see your bootblacking and leather care as, like, it's completely opposite of what you were supposed to be doing. Like, we have this idea of like, oh, like femmes are supposed to be doing things like this, and masculine folks are supposed to be doing things like this, and like taking care of leather and being like, you know what, I can do what I want, how I want it, dress how I want. You know, it's such a beautiful political act. What is more political than like doing exactly what you're not supposed to be doing? We are taught like you should keep buying, keep spending, put your money into these things. It's so beautiful to be like, no, I'm gonna wear this thing for 20 freaking years if I want to, and I'm gonna take care of other people's things that are like 100 freaking years old. So I don't know if we're allowed to curse, but yeah. But yeah, just I had to put that perspective out there. Thank you for it.
Not even brave.
And thinking about it from a bootblacking historical perspective, there was only one person in each motorcycle club, if that's a longer story, that was allowed to do the boots for their club members. They were the one special person that their club members trusted to take care of their leathers so they could continue to wear them on and on and on before we got to this disposable culture. So it's really bringing us back to where we started as bootblacks and what we were doing.
Yeah, I also, can we get a little witchy with it?
I wish you would.
Please. Yes, please.
I'm starting to get licked, so that's perfect.
So, you know, I think Marge Piercy says attention is prayer. And the idea that engaging with an object is inherently materialist, like I think that's surface level. I think materialism is not about the physical object itself, it's about the acquisition and the disposability. And in fact, engaging with these objects, engaging with any objects, can be a meditative and spiritual and magical practice.
By the way, you can get your boots done at the party that is going to happen when this panel is over. Do you guys know about this party?
I was worried about that.
Cool. So, last question before we go to audience Q&A. Have you ever fisted someone with Hubbards?
What?
Can you? Is it safe?
Yes. So all of those questions. I've been fisted with Hubbards. I've fisted people with Hubbards. It is safe if you are not allergic to beeswax or pine tar. If you're not allergic to any of those things, those kind of byproducts, you're fine. It's great. It works. It's really nice. Yeah. The smell alone. So yeah, you can do it. It's all really good. If you're going to use it with something with a condom, don't. Most condoms, unless they're not a latex condom, latex condoms will rupture. So if you want to use condoms on toys or whatever, use something that's not latex. And also, be careful with your toys. Depending if you've got, I don't want to say higher end, because I've been gifted a bunch of shit. But if you've got more novelty toys, I wouldn't suggest using Hubbards with a novelty toy. It's probably going to make it start to come apart and peel in a very, very unhappy making way. So, don't do it.
Thank you.
Good tip. Pro
Yeah,
tip.
Anybody else? Oh yeah.
Because Hubbards is oil-based, I would only recommend using it with a single density silicone toy. If you're gonna do that, anything that's like a rubber or a phthalate or even a dual density with a soft outside, you're going to start having degradation of the material. So I would stick with your hand if I were you. It does have a lifelong side effect, which is that you won't be able to smell it without getting turned on for the whole rest of your life. I think a lot of us in this room are in that position.
That's science. Do you guys want to add anything? We're getting a little lube lesson too, a little safer sex.
Hubbard's, if you're listening.
Sponsor us.
Sponsor us.
Mormons.
That's why we can't have them as a sponsor. They're very religious. Sorry, guys. Yes, we've gone down. Talk to your elders. We know the answer to this. I mean, what?
You can fetishize that.
There are other really amazing brands out there. I just want to say that. Like, there's so many products. I would say, more importantly, as a PSA, buy products from actual bootblacks. There are a lot of bootblacks out there who actually have homemade stuff. Like, if you go on Etsy, oh yeah, thank you so much, Chai. I have plugged this person so many times. They're probably like, Deja. Yeah, I do, as many times as I can. So this is Red Tiger Leather for those at home. It is a conditioner, and this is someone who is a bootblack and they make it at home. It has tallow, lard, lanolin, and beeswax. Like, you can still find things that don't darken your leather. You can find things that are low allergen, allergen-free, scent-free. Whatever you're looking for, there is a product out there. So, I mean, you could probably even fist with this, high key. But I haven't done it. I'm not a fister, I'm a fisty. But I know we talk so much about Hubbard's being like the be all, but I mean, there's so many really great brands out there. I mean, Saphir is a really great brand, Angelus, Lincoln. You know, there's International Mr. Bootblack. He has his own line of stuff. So it's like, you know, don't just stick to one brand. You know, explore what's in your price range. Explore what smells good to you, feels good to you. You know, just works for your lifestyle. So don't feel like, oh my God, like I really want Hubbard's, but I'm allergic to the things. Like, there are other products. Like, don't worry. There's much cheaper products out there. Don't worry. You can find something that's very unique to your style of like leather care and bootblacking.
And if we're talking about anti-capitalist practices, finding something that's multi-purpose.
Oh, I just came again. Oh my God.
Okay, on the
That
topic
was so
of being
good.
multi-purpose, it's Q&A time. So here's how this is going to work. If you have a question, you can raise your hand or get my attention in some way, and then Laura Westengard is going to bring you a microphone.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the highlight reel from yesterday's marathon of the Power of Leather series that was presented at the City College of New York 2 months ago in June. And do you know what I found out when I was editing that video? Do you guys know how many people watched that video before us? Less than 3 dozen. It was like 36 people who had watched that video before us. So I'm just saying, guys, if you want to see stuff that the left is doing that quite literally no one else on the internet is showing you, if you want to be ahead of everyone else, hey, you can support the work I'm doing. You can do that by heading over to my Substack. That is Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. If you are looking for the full replay of the stream last night with the sound fixed, it is up on the Substack. I also put it up on the YouTube channel. I will be putting the clips we just watched up on the Substack as well, so you can have those each individually. If you want to relive the discussion of fisting with shoe grease that was taxpayer funded at the City University of New York, you know, you're going to be able to do that with the clips that we found yesterday. And guaranteed you are not going to see any conservative media reporting on this, even though they all know about it. Guaranteed you're going to see nothing done about this. Guaranteed you're not going to see this go viral on the internet at all. You're only going to get that here, and that's because conservative influencers are narrative shill con artists who only share things that align with their narrative, not things that are like, you know, actually interesting and important, like taxpayer-funded bondage workshops at the City University of New York, Why on earth would we want to share that information with people? Why on earth would we want people to see that? Only if it aligns with our narrative, senor. But you can always find that stuff here. And I appreciate you guys letting me do this. If you want to fund the work I'm doing, because I'm completely funded by people just like you who just want access to the information and you just want to know the truth, head over to the Substack. That is Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. Sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. You guys allow me to do this. I cannot do this without your funding. And an update. Thank you, average person. So yesterday on the stream, and we will be getting into the American Communist Party in a second, guys, for people who are just here for that. Yesterday on the stream, we talked about me possibly going and doing a West Coast kind of queer research tour within like the next couple of months. I think that's actually going to work out because you know what? I was doing some research last night as I was waiting for this video to render, and it turns out there is actually a lot of queer stuff happening on the West Coast. There's going to be a queer film festival. There's all sorts of queer museum exhibits. There's a queer play in San Francisco. There's anarchist book fairs all up and down the West Coast. And it's all kind of, it's like a perfect storm. It's like a perfect storm of insanity. And so I think I am going to try to do this West Coast tour of like all the different queer things. I'm thinking it's going to be in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento, maybe some other like towns in there too. But I'm also thinking about maybe popping up to like the Seattle, Portland area and stuff like that. And I have to like actually sit down and look at the schedule. I have to figure out how much all this is going to cost. And, you know, so I guess I'm saying if you're thinking about supporting my work, now's a great time to do it because I can't take trips like this and go do all the research into like the queer exhibits and and I would create all sorts of content for you guys. I would get photos and videos of all this stuff. I would also do like a stickering campaign. I'm hopefully would have my book done by then. So if you want to support Karlyn's queer research trip of 2025, where I gallivant around to all the far leftist stuff on the West Coast, and I try very hard not to get myself beat up, and I'm going to have to wear a disguise, and that's serious, by the way, because I will be talking about where I'm going, but I can't, I am actually known kind of in these communities. And the thing of it is like most of the time queer people are so fucking selfish that they aren't looking outside of themselves. And so I could be standing right next to someone that's heard of me and they won't even notice that I'm there, which actually benefits me quite well. But we do actually have to take this seriously. I almost got my ass kicked in Boston a couple months ago by not taking the disguise seriously, and we're not going to repeat that. But I think this is going to work out. So if you guys want to fund Karlyn's queer research trip of 2025, where I will go all up and down the West Coast, and I will go to queer exhibits, and I will go to queer landmarks, and I will go to queer events and movies and book fairs and all that stuff, sign up for the Substack. We're going to be doing a little crowdfunding for this. I got to buy plane tickets. I got to buy Airbnbs. I got to rent a car probably. Like, I will put together a schedule. I will let you guys know where I'm going and what I'm doing. Hopefully I can meet up with other people out there. That would be pretty cool if people are out on the West Coast, or, you know, I have a couple content creators I could see wanting to meet up with and stuff like that. I think it would be great. So I think that might happen. There's going to be more coming about that in the next couple weeks. And the best way you can do that is by funding it, which you can do on my Substack, Karlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com, and I would appreciate it. All right. Oh, by the way, before we get into the American Communist Party, can I just say, wait, what? You got Andrew Wilson to mention me? What, was he mad? You know what I found so funny about Andrew Wilson, Trendlin? Do you know when Andrew Wilson had his little hissy fit meltdown about me? Andrew Wilson called me all sorts of names, and Andrew Wilson was like, "You're not even important enough for me to talk to anyway." And he had his whole little drunken Twitter tirade, which, by the way, didn't Andrew Wilson lose by his own standards by getting so pissed off at me? All I said was, Andrew, why don't we debate about if the left hates white people? Can you just debate about if the left hates white people? I made him a very fair offer. And then he demanded I cancel my stuff in my schedule to be on his schedule. And I said, no, Andrew, I'm not going to shift around my schedule for you. I can do it, but I'm not going to do it on these days because I already have something booked. And Andrew Wilson got so pissed off and he started calling me all sorts of names. He had a little hissy fit meltdown, which it's my understanding that Andrew's general rule of thumb is the person that gets mad loses. So Andrew was the one that got mad. Andrew was the one that had a meltdown about me. I was being perfectly nice. Andrew was the one that said, "You're not even important enough for me to talk to anyway." But do you know what I thought was so funny? I happened to notice that Andrew had a conversation with Ben and Grace Thorpe not too long ago. So you're telling me that Andrew Wilson thinks that Ben Thorpe is more relevant than I am? Okay. Okay, Andrew. Okay. So what did he say, Trendlin? Let me know what little hissy fit Andrew Wilson was having today, because he's a massive pussy that doesn't want to debate me, because Andrew Wilson knows he can't debate me, because Andrew Wilson only debates stupid OnlyFans whores. I can't really remember, but essentially he will never debate me because I am a nothing burger. Okay, yeah, Ben Thorpe is more relevant than I am, according to Andrew Wilson. Okay. And just wants to show clips of other shows where she's mentioned to make a big deal out of it. Oh, yeah, because you guys know, I have a long history of just doing entire shows where I just show clips of where I'm mentioned on bigger shows. Yes, that is definitely in my pattern, Andrew. When I'm not watching bondage like presentations from the City University of New York and tracking down real radical revolutionary socialists and going on queer research tours and writing books about the left, all I do is show clips of bigger shows where people mention me. Oh my God. Andrew Wilson is such a pussy. What a disappointment. Honestly, what a disappointment. I had such high hopes. I actually did like watching some of his debates with those stupid OnlyFans whores. I was like, I actually thought that Andrew Wilson is someone that maybe could have actually given me a little bit of a run for my money. I really did. That was the only reason I was interested in debating him. Most people on the right are fucking stupid. They have no idea what I'm talking about. They have no idea what I'm doing. Andrew Wilson, I was like, it might be a little bit of a challenge. It might be something that's kind of interesting to see what arguments he uses against me. And then he turned into a total and complete pussy. Whatever. I guess. I don't really care that much. Hey, you guys want to talk about the plague, though? Guess what, guys? My time has come. I again, was fortuitous. It's almost like I was a psychic. Because did you guys see... the bubonic plague is back. There is someone with the bubonic plague in California. And I just want to say, who is the one person on the internet who made the Plague Doctor my brand? And I made the Plague Doctor my brand like 3 years ago. I started transitioning into Plague Doctor territory a while ago. Who is the only person on the internet to literally build an entire brand around a Plague Doctor? And because of that, I have all sorts of Plague Doctor merch. If people, like the bubonic plague is here, we're going to have to do a special edition bubonic Plague Doctor, because of course we have the classic. In our merch store, we have the classic Red Menace Collective Plague Doctor, my signature Plague Doctor, my favorite Plague Doctor that I've ever made. We also have the Decode the Left Plague Doctor in 2 different types of Plague Doctor. I actually have a bunch of special limited edition Plague Doctors that I made a couple years ago when I was fundraising for something. I've got all sorts of awesome fucking Plague Doctor designs, and now you're telling me the bubonic plague is back? Guys, my time has come. My time has come. And the Plague Doctor is the coolest kind of like imagery that I can think of. See, listen, when I decided to make the Plague Doctor my logo, my thought behind it was that we are literally going in to a plague infested area on the left, and we are the doctor going into the plague infested area on the left, and we have to wear this cool mask to protect us from the plague of the left that is all around us at all times. And now the plague is actually here in California. So if you would like your Plague Doctor t-shirt, you can head over to my merch store. That is the Red Menace Supply Company. That is redmenacesupply.com. You can also get there by going to unwokeart.com. But you can get some sweet, sweet merch right now. We've got, of course, the classic Plague Doctor designs. We've got the Decode the Left Plague Doctor designs. We also have some non-Plague Doctor stuff, too, including the new Bonfires Are Needed design. The new Bonfires Are Needed design just got launched in the store the other day. Everything with this design on it is 25% off until the weekend. And so it's a great time to pick up this merch. That is the rule with the merch store. Anytime I launch a new design, every piece of merch with that design is 25% off in the the first week of launch, so you can pick up some great stuff. We also have the Center for Left-Wing Studies design with the cool Orwell eye. I put it on a Leatherman jacket and all sorts of other stuff. And listen, I have this shirt. I love this shirt. I actually wear this shirt all over the place. The Red Menace Collective is like my VIP book club of people who fund my writing and stuff like that. And it just sounds cool. And it's a badass shirt. I should have worn it today. I think it's in the laundry or something, but it is a badass design, and I love it. And you can pick that up in the Red Menace Supply Company, which is redmenacesupply.com. All sorts of great merch. If you don't want the Plague Doctor, how about the Penguin? Just for Trendlin. Made this design just for Trendlin. It is a badass cool design, though, if I do say so myself. I'm going to have to put the Plague Doctor. I think I might have to put the Plague Doctor on that Letterman's jacket. That would look rad. Anyway, all right, who's ready to talk about the American Communist Party? Now that we've complained about Andrew Wilson and watched some bondage workshop, who is ready to talk about the American Communist Party? Because one of the number one questions that I'm asked is, Karlyn, what does the left think of Haas and the American Communist Party? Now, the American Communist Party launched, what was it, maybe about a year and a half ago, something like that. The American Communist Party is an offshoot of rejects from the Communist Party USA. Communist Party USA is never really I've covered Communist Party USA once or twice, but to be honest, okay, let's back up. There are a ton of different groups on the left. There are some groups on the left that are more serious than others. A lot of these groups have very similar names. So a group that is very serious on the left that we do cover a fair bit are the Revolutionary Communists of America. That is a very serious communist group that's organizing all over the country, that is actively recruiting on college campuses, that is increasing in size all the time. They do stickering campaigns all the time. They're always handing out newspapers and stuff like that on the street. If you live in a major city, you've probably seen the the Revolutionary Communists of America pop up once or twice. They are a serious group. You got the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They're the CCP-funded group. They're the only CCP-funded group. Although their local chapters are not funded. It's just the national chapter that gets money. The Party for Socialism and Liberation is very serious. They run candidates all over the country. They're deeply involved in the campus protests and encampments. They're agitators. They're always around. Anytime there's a protest or a riot, you're going to see the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They have many active chapters all over the country. We're going to be watching today the Denver Communists. The Denver Communists are part of something called the Firebrand Collective, which is a large decentralized network of radical revolutionary socialist and communist groups all over the country. These people are communicating with each other. They're coordinating. They're constantly doing educational meetings. These are very serious activists. There are other groups on the left, like the Communist Party USA, which has been around forever, but is not relevant in leftist politics and activism at all. And they're kind of a laughing stock. And the Communist Party USA had a little bit of a mutiny before the election last year, because what happened was the head of the Communist Party USA came out and told all the members that they had to vote for Joe Biden and then subsequently Kamala Harris. And all the members of the Communist Party USA were like, what the fuck? We don't want to vote for these people. What are you talking about? Because as a reminder, real communists and socialists don't actually like Democrats. It's just fake pretenders that are trying to jockey for something that would ever kind of tell their people to vote for them. And by the way, the Communist Party USA wasn't really relevant in leftist activism even before that. That's why we don't really cover them. It's like they exist. There are people involved. They do push out content every now and again, but they are completely irrelevant in terms of like the majority of leftist activism. They're not at protests. They're not out recruiting. They're not doing any of this stuff. They're just kind of existing in this like weird ether world. And so we don't cover them because there's plenty of stuff that is relevant that we can cover. But when the leadership of the Communist Party USA told the members they had to vote for the Democrats, basically the members mutinied and rebelled, and then the Communist Party USA kicked them all out. And so the Communist Party USA had like this mass exodus because they kicked out all these people from their party. And those people, some of them, joined up with Midwestern Marx and joined up with Jackson Hinkle and Haz al-Din. And that is what created the American Communist Party. The American Communist Party is also not relevant on the left at all. but people make the mistake of thinking that they are because Haz al-Din and Jackson Hinkle have social media followers. And people make the mistake of believing that just because you have a large social media following, that means anything in the real world. Guys, I've been doing this a long time. I have a ton of followers. I've been on really big platforms. Some would say a decent platform myself. I can tell you, I've been involved with the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire during the peak of their Twitter account. Like, I can tell you emphatically, Twitter followers and Twitter likes and Twitter retweets, they don't amount to anything long term, and they don't amount to anything in the real world at all. Real communist and socialist groups are actually hyper-focused on doing things in the real world, on reaching people in the real world, in workplaces, in unions, in organizations, in book clubs, in bookstores, in having in-person events. They're hyper-focused on actually accomplishing things in the real world. Things like the American Communist Party is purely a social media spectacle. That's it. That's it. They are not at major leftist events. They are not respected by leftists. Just because they can get on Tim Pool and like pretend to be a communist does not mean they are actually relevant. So the American Communist Party is not really something that I cover because I don't think it's relevant. Like, real leftists don't talk about it at all. They don't show respect to it at all. Like, real leftists, they want to try to find organizations they can work with. They actually do want to make alliances, and they want to create these decentralized structures where they have allies that they can work with. No one on the real left is ever talking about the American Communist Party. Still, I get people in my comments and replies all the time saying, Karlyn, is this a real thing? And I have to say, no, it's not. But you don't have to take my word for it anymore. Because earlier today, our friends over at the Denver Communists, listen, I feel like we've been watching a lot of Denver Communist stuff lately. I feel like at some point the Denver Communists are going to consider me a friend of some sort because I'm watching so much of their content. I'm exposing them to more people than they'd ever reach on their own. Thanks, Jonathan. What do I think about the Workers' Party in the UK? I don't really cover the UK, if I'm honest about it. There's enough to focus on in America, but I'm not exactly sure. I wish I could give you an opinion. I just really try to focus on America as much as possible. Earlier today, just hours ago, 3 hours ago, in fact, the Denver Communists put up on their YouTube channel, MAGA Communism, the reactionary politics of the American Communist Party. So guess what, guys? You no longer have to take my word for it. We are going to listen directly to what real communists, real far leftists, these are revolutionary communists. We have the Denver Communists on video multiple times talking about violent insurrection in the country, overthrowing the government. We got them just earlier this week talking about using violence to achieve their political goals. These are revolutionary communists. They are hyper-connected on the left. They are at all the major events. They are part of the Firebrand Collective. They're leading the Firebrand Collective. They're working with Socialist Alternative. They're working with other organizations to try to expand their reach. They're hosting a whole socialism conference in a couple of weeks. And so these people are hyper-relevant on the left. And we're going to hear what they had to say about the American Communist Party. And I have no idea because I haven't watched this video, but I'm going to guess that they're not going to appreciate the American Communist Party. But we're going to hear from them. You never have to take my word for it on the channel. You can just listen to the communists. Isn't Karl Marx antique German communist based on oppressions? I have no fucking clue. And you know what? It doesn't even matter. I don't care what Karl Marx said, guys. What I care about are what real leftist activists are doing in the real world today. Sometimes what the real leftist activists are doing in the real world today align with Marx, and sometimes they do not align with Marx. Sometimes they align with their philosophers, and sometimes they don't. What we care about on this channel is what is happening in the real world right now, not the philosophy that was written by dead people 150 years ago, okay? So I have that video, and then I was doing some other research and I found this video. This video is from January. American Communist Party defectors reveal toxic cult-like environment hostile to criticism. You don't say. The American Communist Party has a toxic Stalin-like environment? You don't say. So we've got a couple videos here from communists telling us what they think about the American Communist Party. and we're going to watch them and we're going to enjoy them. So guys, please mount the like button for me if you would be so kind. We stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. And by the way, because I had such an arduous day, I'm drinking today. I have a couple leftover beers, and I'm drinking the beer right out of the bottle. There is something nice, like, because so much beer comes in cans now, there is just something nice about drinking a beer out of a good, sturdy bottle. I've got a Sam Adams Oktoberfest. I've got some pumpkin left over. It's just so satisfying. Cheers, everyone. Hope you're having a good week. Let's see what the Denver Communists had to say about the American Communist Party.
Very sorry that we actually have to talk about these people because I followed them for a long time. They're jokes, they're clowns, they're morons, and unfortunately, they're trying to get organized, and that makes them very dangerous.
I think that's a little bit direct, isn't it? We're 2 seconds into this, and we're finding out that the Denver Communists think that the American Communist Party are jokes and morons. I told you. They're not relevant. I didn't listen to this before we played it. Bam.
I'm very sorry that we actually have to talk about these people because I followed them for a long time. They're jokes, they're clowns, they're morons, and unfortunately, they're trying to get organized, and that makes them very dangerous. And if you read the article, this talk is largely the same. The main difference, I guess something to just add is I will be using certain terms here that should have scare quotes around them. So just know that when I say certain things are left-wing, they're not, and you should be able to pick that up. But anyhow, this should go for about 30-ish minutes. So let's get going. So if you spend any amount of time on social media, then it's possible you may have encountered the American Communist Party or the ACP. Their members constantly share images of themselves at strikes and performing community work. They also utilize the hammer and sickle along with other left-wing aesthetics. And based on their own statements, the ACP is proudly and unapologetically communist with a program for a revolutionary future. Yet a closer look at the ACP gives rise to serious doubts regarding their communist credentials. The founders of the ACP include the undefeated tanky warlord Haz al-Din, real name Ali Hamoud, who fancies himself their executive chairman. A law school dropout, Haz has devoted himself to streaming full-time. On his streams, which run for more than 4 hours, he projects an image of both a macho bully and that of a wise philosopher. It has his statements range from the idiotic to the absurd by claiming that the USA is already socialist, that the homeless are lords of the sidewalk who treat pedestrians like serfs, or that McDonald's is culturally communistic. And the most famous figure associated with the ACP is Jackson Hinkle, who has over 3 million followers on Twitter. Hinkle is a former Bernie bro turned online media personality who claims to be a Marxist-Leninist and American patriot. And based on his own confession, there is ample reason to believe that he has no firm political convictions at all, but merely wants fame and fortune. I do everything for the clout, he says. You've never seen me do something not for the clout. That's the only way I operate. Even more, the ACP does not engage in the type of activities that one would expect from a self-described communist party. They do not organize workers nor fight for the oppressed. Rather, their main activity consists of online bullying entailing the most backward elements of the Republican Party. The reality is that the ACP is not a communist party at all. After investigating their ideological influences, it becomes clear that the ACP is a reactionary, if not an openly fascist organization. Now, one of the most important historical predecessors of the ACP can be found in the politics of the third position. This refers to a branch of fascist thought that claims to reject...
They think they're third positionists? Wow.
Both Western-style capitalism and proletarian communism. Third positionists believe that they are neither right nor left, but aim to combine elements of both. For our purposes, however, the most important example of third positionism that is a precursor to the ACP can be found in Strasserism. And Strasserism takes its name from the brothers Otto and Gregor Strasser, who made up the so-called left wing of the Nazi Party. The Strasserite program provided a revolutionary veneer that appealed to the D-class workers and petty bourgeois elements who made up the rank and file of the Nazi brown shirts. Their political program included anti-capitalist demands for the nationalization of industry. Yet their particular variant of socialism was anti-materialist and anti-communist, emphasizing the spiritual values of the German Volk. One major element of Strasserite anti-capitalism that the ACP draws upon is their producerism. Now, producerism is a doctrine that prioritizes the so-called productive elements of society, such as farmers, industrial capitalists, and manual workers. The producers are framed as those who make genuine wealth and are viewed as the backbone of society. In opposition to the producers are the unproductive elites, such as bankers, speculators, financiers, and lazy immigrants who are parasitic upon society. And the Straussites used producerism to champion an economic anti-Semitism where Jews were portrayed as money-grubbing bankers who leached off the German Volk. It should be emphasized that Straussite anti-capitalism is not equivalent to Marxist anti-capitalism. Straussite anti-capitalism is set up as a clash.
Wait. Are you shitting me? Are the Denver communists about to explain to us that National Socialism is not the same as socialism? Are the Denver communists about to show us that they actually understand more about this than James Lindsay does? Because James Lindsay's whole thing is that National Socialism is the same as socialism, which it just provably isn't. National Socialism, and I'm not a Nazi, by the way, disavow all Nazis, obviously, but it's just a provable fact that the Nazis maintained private property ownership. They just did. They gave people free houses for having a number of kids. So it's like the Nazis maintained private property ownership. They had many other faults, okay? We're not saying they didn't. But they are fundamentally different than leftist communists and socialists, because leftist communists and socialists want to abolish all private property, while the Nazis, for all their very many faults, wanted to maintain private property, and therefore they're not the same thing. James Lindsay is running around Twitter saying that Nazis and communists are the same thing when they're just provably not. And apparently the Denver communists know this. The Denver communists are literally saying, guys, these are not the same thing.
Producers are the unproductive elites, such as bankers, speculators, financiers, and lazy immigrants who are parasitic upon society. And the Straussites used producerism to champion an economic anti-Semitism where Jews were portrayed as money-grubbing bankers who leached off the German Volk. It should be emphasized that Straussite anti-capitalism is not equivalent to Marxist anti-capitalism. Straussite anti-capitalism is set up as a clash between an authentic national community and a parasitic elite, not a class struggle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. And this enables the Straussites to easily substitute racial struggle for class struggle, with the bourgeoisie now portrayed as international Jews. In their producerist narrative, the Jew becomes the evil puppet master pulling all the strings.
Oh, yeah?
Like third positionists, the ACP claims to transcend traditional politics. The Infrared Media Collective, founded by Haas, describes itself as Marxist-Leninist analysis beyond the visible spectrum. In another case, Haas claims that a communist partisan, a concept he borrows from the Nazi legal theorist Carl Schmitt, will transcend the left-right dichotomy. The partisan comes from below.
Guys, is it possible? Is it actually possible that we could maybe clip some of this stuff to make it look like James Lindsay is on the side of the Denver communists? I think there might be, because James Lindsay's always complaining about Schmitt, I guess. So maybe let's just keep our ears peeled for a good clip that we can pull to use against James.
Haas says, resolving the apparent contradiction between left and right by introducing an entirely new dimension of political alignment. It does not unite or synthesize left and right. It rather displaces the contradiction between them into a radically new form. It displaces the left and right distinction by articulating that distinction into an entirely new continuum of counter-hegemonic political space, end quote. The ACP also views the struggle against capitalism in terms of rescuing producers from parasitic monopolistic elites. In the rise of MAGA communism, Haas claims, communists don't want to socialize people's actual belongings or even businesses. What communists seek is the overthrow of the monopolists, the bankers, big pharma, big agriculture, big tech, and others who've hijacked the American Republic in the name of the sacred institution of private.
Frankie, you're allowed to have all the feelings you want. You're not allowed to have them in my chat, okay? Do not fucking post this shit in my chat. It is not relevant. You're only going to do damage to me. You're not convincing anyone. So please keep it together. If you keep posting shit like this in my chat, I'm just going to ban you. Which I don't want to do, but it's just not appropriate, okay?
Property. And Hinkle also advocates a variant of Straussite communism that protects private property. He says, communists today don't support the eradication of...
They just said it. They just said it. They're pissed off that Hinkle promotes private property because communists want to abolish all private property.
Businesses. What communists seek is the overthrow of the monopolists, the bankers, big pharma, big agriculture, big tech, and others who've hijacked the American Republic in the name of the sacred institution of private property. And Hinkle also advocates a variant of Strasserite communism that protects private property. He says, communists today don't support the eradication of private property. What we support is more growth, more wealth, more businesses for the people. Nor produces anti-Semitism foreign to the ACP. For example, Hinkle views the Jews as sinister elites who killed Jesus. Elsewhere on the Alex Jones show, yes, that guy, Hinkle claimed that a cabal of Trotskyites, a euphemism for Jews, are secretly controlling the world. The world is run by Trotskyites, Hinkle says. These are the most evil, sick human beings on the planet. It's the Clintonites, the Bushites, the World Economic Forum, and Klaus Schwab. It's anybody who stands opposed to the American working class. And it should be emphasized that considering that Hinkle shot to fame on Twitter by claiming to support Palestine, his open anti-Semitism makes it imperative for all genuine anti-Zionists to thoroughly repudiate him. Now, in addition to Strasserite producerism, the ACP also draws upon Volkish thinkers such as Martin Heidegger. In a long Twitter post entitled, "Why Marxism is Not Woke," Haas claims that Marxist theory in the West is meaningless without the aid of Dugin and Heidegger's thinking. Let's start with Heidegger. Now, Martin Heidegger was one of the most important philosophers of the 20th century. He was also a dedicated Nazi who saw his thinking as contributing to the revival of the German Volk, or people. Now, for Heidegger, an authentic culture of the Volk was rooted in the countryside, which is a source of tradition, life, and spiritual energy. And the spiritual world of a Volk, Heidegger says, is the power that comes from preserving, at the most profound level, the forces that are rooted in the soil and blood of a Volk, the power to arouse most inwardly and to shake most extensively the Volk's existence. A spiritual world alone will guarantee our Volk greatness. By contrast, modern civilization, with its cities, stood for the spiritually barren world of universalism, individualism, atomization, and rootlessness. This was represented above all by the cosmopolitan Jew. In other words, a true Volk was rooted in the countryside, while city dwellers such as the Jews were not part of the people since they were rootless and lacking a true soul. Therefore, Heidegger believed it was necessary to eliminate these carriers of universalism since they were the enemies of the authentic Volk. And he said, an enemy is each and every person who poses an essential threat to the Dasein or being of the people and its individual members. The enemy does not have to be external, and the external enemy is not even always the more dangerous one. The enemy can have attached itself to the innermost roots of the being of a people and can set itself against this people's essence and act against it. The struggle is all the fiercer and harder and tougher. For the least of it consists in coming to blows with one another. It is often far more difficult and wearisome to catch sight of the enemy as such, to bring the enemy into the open, to harbor no illusions about the enemy, to keep oneself ready for attack, to cultivate and intensify a constant readiness, and to prepare the attack looking far ahead with the goal of total annihilation. And the entire strategy of MAGA communism is premised upon Heideggerian ideas that the rooted American people are fighting cosmopolitan elites. According to Haas, the true source of resistance to the globalist system can be found in the American heartland, which is the base of MAGA. Therefore, communists must fuse with the authentic American people who compose the MAGA movement. Reality is the site of counter-hegemony, he says. Hegemony solidifies in the urban centers. To build a counter-hegemony, one must go to the base, the basis, and that is the rural hinterlands. That is where the counter-hegemonic organization is truly possible. That is what MAGA basically is. And in line with Volkish thought, MAGA communists view the cities as centers of woke leftist values, such as women's liberation, anti-racism, gay rights, and internationalism. These are alien to the working class who respect values such as family, race, country, and traditional gender roles. Finally, Haas states that leftists act as a new fascist vanguard on behalf of the globalists. Leftism is the ideology of American unipolar imperialism, he says, the highest stage of bourgeois political modernity, which seeks to formalize not only all politics, but all culture, society, etc., under the principle of universal formal equality. The true heir of fascism, he says, is none other than leftism itself. And as an aside, this hostility to the cities and intellectual glasses wearers helps explain both the ACP's extreme anti-intellectualism and Haas's sympathetic remarks regarding Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge. The Russian fascist and national Bolshevik Alexander Dugin has also influenced the ACP's thinking. In the 90s, Dugin's fascism took on the shape of national Bolshevism, which he believed would transcend both left and right by combining ultranationalism and revolutionary communist Elon. And this attempt to forge a red-brown alliance in the Russian National Bolshevik Party prefigured later efforts by the ACP to align anti-imperialists with the MAGA movement. And the ACP also frames their understanding of global affairs through the prism of Dugin's understanding of multipolarity or Eurasianism. In his 1997 book, The Foundations of Geopolitics, Dugin argued that there was a conflict between the liberal Atlantic bloc led by the US and Eurasia led by Russia. He believed that Russia was destined to dominate Eurasia, roughly the territories of the former Soviet Union, and he also claimed that the United States was homogenizing the world by spreading global capitalism. By contrast, Dugin said that Russia represented traditional and nationally rooted peoples who are resisting cosmopolitan elites. And in Dugin's fourth political theory, he claims to advance the foundations of an entirely new political ideology. He states that the 20th century is dominated by the ideological struggle between three different political theories: liberalism, communism, and fascism. And now that liberalism stands triumphant, he argues for a fourth political theory that combines elements of communism and fascism in order to combat liberalism. Yet after all the theoretical obscurantism is swept away, it becomes clear that Dugin is merely rebranding fascism as part of a wider anti-democratic and anti-liberal coalition that brings together left and right. The influence of Dugin is readily apparent upon the ACP. For instance, both Haas and Hinkle have met with Dugin multiple times. Haas praised him as one of the most powerful minds of our era, and according to Hinkle, Dugin is one of the greatest men alive today, and encouraged his followers to buy Dugin's books from the Nazi publisher Arktos. In particular, Haas believes that the fourth political theory is identical with Marxism, and he also claims that Dugin's insights align with Mao Zedong thought. Mao was a Duginist before Dugin was ever even born, Haas says. Mao was already well acquainted and deeply immersed in the geopolitical, literary, civilizational, traditional, unconscious, demotic, national, and even mystical realities that had to be scandalously exhumed by Dugin. In addition, Haas and the ACP utilized Duginite concepts to frame their understanding of multipolarity. One tagline for Infrared is, "Find the vision, Marxism-Leninism in the age of multipolarity." In addition, they view the Russia-Ukrainian war as a defense of traditional civilization by Putin against globalist elites. Elsewhere, Haas's voiced support for Eurasianism. When he visited Russia in 2024, he met with members of the Eurasian Youth Union, the youth wing of Dugin's Eurasian Party, to discuss their common political ground. Furthermore, ACP members have pursued a Duginite strategy by bringing together the forces of the left and the right to oppose the deep state. For instance, Hinkle was one of the keynote speakers at the 2023 Rage Against the War Machine rally that brought together libertarians, fascists, cranks, leftists, and other morons in opposition to the Ukraine war.
Yeah.
Lastly, Haas utilized Dugin's ideas to recast communism as a defense of American civilization. In a certain sense, Haas says, I regard communism as America's own manifest destiny, where America will finally confront itself as a definite, specific, and particular civilization, rather than the...
Do you guys remember when Tim Pool had Haas on to debate with Trevor Loudon? Now, Trevor Loudon is awesome, and he actually knows his stuff. But, like, it was like Tim Pool had Haas on under the premise that he was a communist to debate with Trevor Loudon about communism. And we watched that episode, and this was, like, my first interaction with Haas, and I was like, this isn't fucking real. This isn't real. This isn't real at all. And it was like Tim didn't even know enough about what communists actually think and believe to understand that Haas was not actually a communist. And now we have, of course, the Denver communists doing... I mean, this guy is just raging. This guy is not even taking breaths. I have never heard the Denver communists speak so passionately about a topic as they are speaking about the fact that the American Communist Party is not communist. They're actually fascist. And so I'm just like... I was sitting here thinking about how it's entirely possible. I'm not saying I would ever do this because I wouldn't actually ever do this, but I'm pretty sure that I could actually like just play the role of a communist and go through all the communist talking points better than Haas can. Like, I'm pretty sure I could fake play a communist in a debate because I know all the communist talking points. I know their point of view. I know their perspective. I know how they define words. I know how to speak their language. I've gone undercover at their events and have spoken to them multiple times. I know how to blend in with the communist folk, okay? I'm pretty sure if you put me in a debate against someone that was an anti-communist, I could successfully play the role of the communist. And then you have people like Haz al-Din, who claim to be a communist, have no fucking idea what they're even talking about, and you have assholes like Tim Pool, who pretends to be an expert in everything, not understanding that Haz has no idea what he's talking about.
Universal exception of all humanity. American communism means America as one country among others, rather than the center of the world. Finally, the concerns, interests, needs, and reality of our own people can be addressed instead of trying to act as the world police. In addition, the ACP program expresses Duganite ideas by highlighting the need to restore American culture and tradition. The Communist Party stands for the cultivation and discovery of a national continental American culture on the basis of the unique history, geography, and ethnic makeup of the American peoples. The Communist Party stands for the promotion of language, autonomy, and economic development and culture of American tribes. The Communist Party stands for the construction of a unified American historical, national, and cultural identity to overcome all racial and social antagonisms. In the end, Dugin's philosophy provides the core of the ACP's Marxism-Leninism, where the class struggle and internationalism are replaced with multipolarity and civilizational politics. A fourth major influence on the ACP can be found in the cult leader, Lyndon LaRouche. LaRouche was originally a Trotskyist who turned to the far right in the 70s. In his shift to the right, his cadre physically attacked members of both the Communist and Socialist Workers' Parties during Operation Mop-Up. And he's also cultivated ties to intelligence agencies and a wide range of conservative groups, including the Ku Klux Klan. At the same time, LaRouche developed increasingly elaborate and unhinged conspiracy theories where the Jews, the medium of the British Empire, have dominated the United States. Now, LaRouche's use of the British as a stand-in for the Jews was part of a deliberate rhetorical strategy on his part. He often promoted his anti-Semitic conspiracism with euphemisms or code words as, he said, an artificial mechanism to avoid the moral shock of facing bestiality in its most degenerate forms. And in the 70s, LaRouche used this approach to instill far-right ideas amongst his then left-leaning followers, since open anti-Semitism was still considered beyond the pale. And the ACP follows a similar approach of denying open anti-Semitism, preferring dog whistles such as globalists, the deep state, along with singling out finance capital and Jews such as George Soros, and above all, Leon Trotsky, who for them is the epitome of a satanic cosmopolitan Jew who rejects all traditional values. And Hawes has also repeated LaRouche's conspiracy theories that the British Empire secretly rules the United States. The American Republic, he says, was founded on the basis of seceding from the empire. It has become an empire also because we've allowed the British intelligence to conquer our country. The British ruling class conquered our deep state and our country and became our ruling class. So yeah, we became an empire. And as we shall see later, conspiracism is ever present in how the ACP views protests against Trump. And the direct influence of LaRouche upon the ACP is not very hard to find. For one, the cult-like structure of the ACP feels like a cheap copy of LaRouche's method of organization. And other places, ACP members have also praised LaRouche as a great political thinker. In one stream, Haas said, even for those who might disagree with LaRouche's philosophy, they must at least concede that he is one of the most, if not the most, profound theorists and thinkers of policy in the modern age. And both Haas and Hinkle have organizational connections to the LaRouche movement. They're both acquaintances with Daniel Burke, one of its more prominent figures. And Haas has interviewed Burke on his stream. And alongside Burke, both Haas and Hinkle were speakers at the Build the New Paradigm, Defeat Green Fascism conference hosted by the LaRouche-affiliated Schiller Institute in October of 2022. As dedicated producerists, the LaRoucheites want nothing to constrain the productive capacity of the U.S. This means both the ACP and the LaRouche movement are adamantly opposed to the environmentalist movement, viewing it as a harbinger of Malthusian fascism. Now, despite all its irrationalist and reactionary components, the ACP does not self-identify itself as a fascist organization. Instead, its constitution declares Marxism-Leninism constitutes the official outlook of the American Communist Party. This immediately raises the question, what exactly the ACP means by Marxism-Leninism? Now, as opposed to proletarian internationalism, the ACP privileges the nationalist outlook of Stalin's socialism in one country. For example, Haas declared, socialism in one country reflected the precise logic that universal communism can only be built up within a determinate communal being, not a vain pretension to the entire world, but a concrete, grounded relationship between a specific party and a specific country. In other words, the ACP wants to purge communism of anything remotely revolutionary and universalist. Instead, they celebrate the Stalinist Thermidor with its revival of the traditional family, social hierarchies, cultural conservative.
Oh, they're literally saying that Hawes wants to revive the family and social hierarchies. Okay, let me explain this to people who might not understand. The vast majority of socialists and communists in America are Marxist-Leninists. The vast majority of socialists and communists in America hate Stalinists. The Stalinists and Marxist-Leninists do not get along. They do not agree. Stalin, one of the big mistakes, because Marxist-Leninist communists believe that Stalin basically screwed everything up. They believe that if Trotsky had been the inheritor of the revolution, things would have been fine, but Stalin screwed everything up. So how did Stalin screw things up? The big mistake that they believe Stalin made was not trying to achieve communism on a global scale and just keeping it to Russia. This is why communists want, actually essentially to do communism in America. This is why every time someone says, why don't you just move to Venezuela? Why don't you just move to Cuba? It's stupid, because communists want communism to be global, and they think America needs to fall to communism in order to achieve their goals. And so telling them to move to a communist country isn't going to do anything, because they're like, that's dumb. We want communism everywhere. We want it on a global scale. And that's because they believe that Stalin's big error was just restricting communism to Russia. So when Haas is doing this stupid MAGA communist bullshit, even if you just look at the term MAGA communism, it implies a nationalistic communism. That's part of like the Stalinist aspect of it. And so it's going to be fundamentally rejected on the face of it.
And the promotion of material incentives.
Let's just listen to that again, because and by the way, they're basically calling Haas a capitalist in this. They're saying you want hierarchy. This was another big problem that they had with Stalin. Stalin created a hierarchy. The whole goal of equity is to eliminate all hierarchy. So Stalin created a hierarchy. They don't want that.
Our world, but a concrete, grounded relationship between a specific party and a specific country. In other words, the ACP wants to purge communism of anything remotely revolutionary and universalist. Instead, they celebrate the Stalinist thermidor with its revival of the traditional family, social hierarchies, cultural conservatism, and the promotion of material incentives crowned by despotic bureaucracy as genuine socialism. Yet even more than traditional Stalinism, the ACP is more closely aligned to the late Stalinism of the 50s with its anti-Semitic campaigns against ruthless cosmopolitans, the doctor's plot, and the promotion of Russian chauvinism. In addition, the ACP's chauvinism has a historical antecedent with the Popular Front line upheld by the Communist Party USA in the 30s and 40s. Under General Secretary Earl Browder, the party declared communism is the Americanism of the 20th century. The CPUSA declared that communism was heir to the patriotic, democratic, and radical traditions of the United States. And its cadre marched behind the Stars and Stripes while its mass meetings had banners displaying Washington and Lincoln. And in its search for political respectability, the Communist Party became little more than a wing of the Democrats. And during World War II, the party was second to none in support of the war effort. And to that end, they backed the internment of the Japanese Americans, they broke strikes, they abandoned anti-racist struggles, and ultimately even dissolved the party itself. And Browder's national chauvinism aligns perfectly with the ACP, with the important caveat that they were prepared to tail the Republicans as opposed to the Democrats. And the ACP also adheres to the campus politics of the former Trotskyist and Workers' World Party founder Sam Marcy. And in the 50s, Marcy developed the perspective of global class war, where the conflict between the Soviet bloc and American imperialism now superseded the class struggle internationally and within each country. That meant that U.S. socialists must uncritically defend the Soviet Union, China, North Korea, Cuba, what have you. Eventually, this Marxian analysis extended to viewing any government opposed to the United States, whether Iran, Syria, the Russian Federation, what have you, as not merely anti-imperialist, but as a positive good, if not outright socialists. So not only does the ACP fanatically support the so-called Russian special military operation in Ukraine, but Haas thinks Vladimir Putin is still fighting for communism. And one key linkage between Marxism and the ACP can be found in the figure of Caleb Spanky Maupin, a former member of the Workers' World Party. Maupin left the party in 2015 to pursue a career as a journalist for Iranian and Russian state media. Leaving aside Marxism, he has embraced LaRouche, Putin, Dugin, and Trump. While they have since fallen out, Maupin had a long association with Haas and Hinkle. In 2021, Maupin, Haas, and Hinkle shared several streams together where they discussed various conspiracy theories regarding the synthetic left, who support imperialism and the need for patriotic socialism. The following year, Haas and Hinkle were major speakers at the Austin conference held by Maupin's Center for Political Innovation. Finally, the ACP frames their defense of so-called actually existing socialism, especially in China, as overcoming the purity fetish and abstract revolutionism that they believe predominates in Western Marxism. According to ACP Education Secretary Carlos Garrido, the Western Marxist purity fetish makes them immune to seeing socialist construction as a process, one which will undoubtedly develop contradictions which will in time be likely overcome. Garrido also believes that their attachment to the purity fetish ensures that Western Marxists remain a controlled opposition who do not fundamentally challenge imperialism. Ultimately, the ACP's rejection of the purity fetish is nothing more than blind worship of the Chinese state for rapidly expanding the productive forces. It should be observed that Garrido is a co-founder of the misnamed Midwestern Marx Institute, also known as the Midwestern Mussolini Institute, a self-described Marxist-Leninist think tank founded.
Oh no! Denver communist shit-talking Midwestern Marx is the Midwestern Mussolini Institute? Oh no! Noah felt it! Noah felt it! Again?
Who did not fundamentally challenge imperialism. Ultimately, the ACP's rejection of the purity fetish is nothing more than blind worship of the Chinese state for rapidly expanding the productive forces. It should be observed that Garrido is a co-founder of the misnamed Midwestern Marx Institute, also known as the Midwestern Mussolini Institute, a self-described Marxist-Leninist think tank founded in 2020. Early on, Midwestern Mussolini was publishing content on the importance of proletarian patriotism in the class struggle and the need for socialism with American characteristics. They also have an aversion to anti-oppression politics, viewing the struggle for gay rights as something promoted by corporate liberals and a distraction from the class struggle. Midwestern Mussolini also tails fascists, believing that they can join together with them on purely economic basis to fight the ruling class. And when the ACP was formed, Noah Kravnik, Eddie Smith, and Carlos Garrido from Midwestern Mussolini were all found amongst its leadership. Now we come to the final element of the ACP's ideology, which is MAGA communism. Originally a hashtag that went viral on Twitter in 2022, MAGA communism was developed by both Haas and Hinkle. In its defense of the idea, Haas argues that Donald Trump fundamentally changed American politics by reintroducing class struggle and challenging the status quo. At one point, Haas claimed that Trump was more anti-imperialist than the whole Western left. Trump was far, far more an anti-imperialist than all the bozo white leftist frauds combined in the history of the American left. I'm not scared to be associated with Trump. Trump is not ideologically, but in practice, he was far more an anti-imperialist than all the bozo scum combined. In addition, Haas claims that MAGA communism is a genuine proletarian movement, and MAGA is irrefutably the only workers' political movement that exists in America. Finally, he argues that communism represents the unspoken desire of MAGA. The unity of communism and with MAGA is nothing more than the unity of Marxism with the workers' movement. We believe the MAGA movement has the potential to be turbocharged into a revolutionary movement by, of, and for the American working class. For Haas, this means that the American left has a choice of either staying with the fake urban leftist milieu or joining up with the only mass working class and anti-establishment movement that exists in America. To make this very simple and blunt, every single claim of MAGA communism is moronic and utterly wrong. For one, Donald Trump does not represent
I remember one time I got into a fight with a groyper in my DMs, and the groyper was trying to explain to me that the American Communist Party was a real thing. And I was like, bro, have you ever actually listened to real communists? Because I promise you, real communists do not believe the American Communist Party is a real thing. He's like, no, Karlyn, you don't understand. You don't understand. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I do understand. Real communists do not believe that the American Communist Party is really communist. I promise you. And this was a whole like hour-long fight back and forth in DMs where this guy was just not getting it at all. And I don't even honestly know why I engaged with him, because it was an obvious waste of time, but I mean, I was probably amused by it or something. But it was just like, it's so obvious to anyone that actually listens to real communists and socialists, this was always a non-starter. This is not something they talk about. These are not people that are at their events. It's just like, it's so stupid. But of course, people who are perpetually online believe that the person with the most Twitter followers is the most influential, which oftentimes is bullshit. The person with the most Twitter followers is just really good at causing chaos on Twitter, but oftentimes not actually very good at doing things in the real world. And so I'm being completely vindicated by the by the Denver communists right now, who are like, this is fucking moronic and stupid and utterly wrong. I just love this. They're like, the whole idea that these people are communists is stupid and fucking retarded. I love it.
Leftist milieu or joining up with the only mass working class and anti-establishment movement that exists in America. To make this very simple and blunt, every single claim of MAGA communism is moronic and utterly wrong. For one, Donald Trump does not represent a challenge to the capitalist system at any level. His campaigns have espoused various right-wing populist, conspiracist, and racist ideas, and as president, Trump has carried out a wholly reactionary agenda. The MAGA movement is nothing more than a Trump fan club with an overwhelmingly petty bourgeois and bourgeois social base. In no moment has MAGA ever supported a picket line, blocked the deportation of immigrants, or shown a trace of proletarian internationalism. Now, despite their clear adulation of Trump, MAGA communists have attempted to distance themselves from him. Posts can be found on Twitter that they were merely joking or that the strategy was just trying to reach the working class base of MAGA. As Haas said in one interview, we have a saying as MAGA communists, which is that when you go to McDonald's, you don't go for the clown, you go for the burger. Trump is the mascot of the movement. All this sophistry aside, the ACP has clearly supported Trump's 2024 campaign. For instance, Hinkle supported Tulsi Gabbard for Secretary of State, and he's actually personally associated with her. He praised Trump for supposedly ending wars, and he said he had Trump's back. And it should be noted, the ACP described movements against Trump, such as the June 2025 LA protests, as a color revolution sponsored by finance capital. According to Hinkle, the riots in LA are a deep state color revolution attempt. Trump is deporting far less migrants than Biden, but now faces war. Trump is also taking full advantage of this crisis to wield unchecked authority and surveillance. Finance capital are the only winners here. As an aside, it's also worth noting that the ACP also defends other Republican presidents. For example, Haas described Richard Nixon as a counter-hegemonic leader who was ousted by the CIA with the Watergate break-in. Now, since the ACP tails the GOP, they view contemporary politics through the same cultural war lens as them. This means that the ACP sees the urban Democrats and their leftist auxiliaries with their woke agenda as the main enemy. Due to their culturalist flaming, the ACP adopts a narrow definition of the working class that excludes anyone outside of a stereotyped male industrial factory worker from circa 1850. This means Haas views most unions as integral parts of the democratic apparatus, meaning they need to be destroyed. Naturally, he cheered the first Trump administration for carrying out a working class agenda by attacking unions. Or as Haas succinctly said once, fuck union organizing. Perhaps nothing exemplifies the ACP's culturalist view of the working class in their condemnation of barista service workers. In contrast to masculine factory workers, baristas are disparaged as effeminate and unproductive. Yet this is a moralistic view of productive versus unproductive labor, as opposed to a Marxist understanding. For Marx, unproductive labor generates surplus value for the capitalists. By contrast, unproductive labor does not directly generate surplus value for the capitalists. The key insight here regards productive from the point of view of the capitalists. This is not a moral judgment on the labor carried out, but an objective analysis of the role labor performs for capital. So Marx does not condemn unproductive labor while praising productive work. Morals don't play a role in a scientific analysis. And even more than that, a barista is actually performing productive labor from a Marxist point of view. Baristas may not be growing or picking the coffee that they serve, yet capitalists do not just sell beans and milk to every customer at Starbucks. As service workers, they produce a commodity by assembling the ingredients of coffee to generate surplus value for the capitalists. So the APC's opposition to unproductive baristas cannot be justified in terms of Marxist political economy. Rather, their position is based entirely on cultural terms. For the ACP, a barista signifies decadent, cosmopolitan urban values, along with representing marginal groups whom they detest, such as women, gays, and racial minorities. Yet the ACP believes that when they are fighting the woke baristas, they're actually defending the traditionalist working class. So, on July 21st, 2024, the American Communist Party was founded by Haas, Hinkle, and others from the Midwestern Mussolini Institute, and allegedly from dissident chapters in the Communist Party. And since its launch, the ACP has proven to be incredibly disorganized. It took 4 months before they held a founding conference and adopted a hastily written constitution. In terms of their day-to-day activity, the ACP has done minor charity work, such as picking up trash, and have taken selfies at picket lines. In terms of their class base, the ACP seems composed of machismo petty bourgeois young men with incel attitudes and not a slither of artistic talent
They're
among them.
incels?
Hence the reliance
They
on
just call
AI
them
slop
incels.
for propaganda. While they don't consider baristas to be workers, they don't actually have much of a problem when it comes to working with the cops. Yet the bulk of their activism occurs online. For the ACP, it is imperative to control the social media narrative, which means all their real-life actions are predicated on gaining likes and retweets. In order to increase their online clout, the ACP has exaggerated their party membership actions and even falsely claimed Haas was almost assassinated while visiting the Donbass. Carlos Garita believes that lying is acceptable since it brings recruits into the party. And according to former members, they quote, "The ACP is a cult of personality with the top ranks filled by narcissists, cowards, and self-interested grifters shrouded in a veil of legitimacy by the rank and file membership and their well-intentioned by woefully unskilled and disconnected work." Now, one should generally question how well-intentioned anyone is who ever joined the ACP cesspool. The rest is actually fairly well set. Moreover, Haas himself is an incompetent and disorganized Führer who runs the ACP as his own little fiefdom. During meetings, he threatens and verbally abuses members by shouting homophobic slurs, and to build the organization, he wants the ACP to act as the businesses where chapters will unleash their entrepreneurial spirit by becoming landlords. And it should go without much saying that the ACP is filled with rampant misogyny, homophobia, racism, anti-Semitism, and chauvinism. To bring us back to our opening point, the ACP is only communist in terms of its name. In everything else, they are a sewer of reaction, irrationalism, and anti-communism. They are led by narcissistic bullies, conmen, and morons who preach fascist nonsense dressed up as Marxism. Beyond all the verbiage, MAGA communism means not only supporting Donald Trump, but also tailing the most reactionary elements of society. The ACP's practice can be summed up as a bizarro mass line of unite the backward, drive away the intermediate, and isolate the advance. Now, despite the clear reactionary nature of the ACP and MAGA communism, there seems to be confusion among some leftists on how to deal with them. In a very uneven article about the ACP published in Cosmonaut magazine, Soldier of Love stated, "I wish the best for the ACP, and I hope that they focus more on on-the-ground activity and that we might even get a chance to work together to help our communities." Other writers have stressed the need to engage those attracted to the ACP in order to win over their supporters. This is all the wrong approach to take toward them. These are not wayward, but otherwise well-meaning leftists in a different organization whom we can do joint work with. Contrary to an old saying, the ACP are not...
I love this. I love this. Okay, so apparently some communists... Cosmonaut magazine is a communist magazine. I know it. I've tracked it before. So apparently there are some communists who are like, hey guys, maybe we should try to work with the ACP. Maybe there are some well-meaning communists in their ranks and they just don't know these people suck. That's entirely possible. And then the Denver communists are like, no, you assholes. We absolutely shouldn't work with them. Fuck those assholes. I love this. This is so great. Jackson, Hinkle, and Haas completely felted by the Denver communists.
And isolate the advance. Now, despite the clear reactionary nature of the ACP and MAGA communism, there seems to be confusion among some leftists on how to deal with them. In a very uneven article about the ACP published in Cosmonaut magazine, Soldier of Love stated, "I wish the best for the ACP, and I hope that they focus more on on-the-ground activity and that we might even get a chance to work together to help our communities." Other writers have stressed the need to engage those attracted to the ACP in order to win over their supporters. This is all the wrong approach to take toward them. These are not wayward, but otherwise well-meaning leftists in a different organization whom we can do joint work with. Contrary to an old saying, the ACP are not left in form and right in essence. They are just right in form and right in essence. They represent a deranged movement of fascists who should not be welcomed in our spaces. We do not wish them well. We do not want to work with them. We want to defeat them. So we must adopt diametrically different politics than the ACP. Revolutionary communists must aspire to be, as Lenin proclaimed, tribunes of the people who fight against all forms of exploitation and oppression. And unlike the ACP dipshits, we do not tail backward ideas such as nationalism, misogyny, homophobia, racism, and anti-Semitism.
It's so good.
At the same time, it should not be surprising that many workers enter political life with these ideas. However, it is possible for communists to meet people where they are without politically adapting ourselves to outworn prejudices and notions. Rather, it is our task to lead the masses to correct conclusions and effective action against the bourgeoisie without adapting to backward ideas. As history has proven, this is the only path that leads to communism. What the ACP offers is not a shortcut to communism, but the highway to hell. Thank you.
Well, I think that's pretty clear, guys. I'm sorry. I think that's pretty clear. For anyone who was under the misperception that the American Communist Party and Haz al-Din and Jackson Hinkle were taken seriously by the real far left, the Denver communists have pretty clearly said they can all go fuck themselves. We don't want anything to do with them. They're literal fascists. We're not on the same team. We want to defeat them. No, we don't want to recruit their members. No, we don't want to be nice to them. No, we don't wish them well. They're literal fucking fascists, you assholes. So I think that the real communists, once again, have made it very, very clear what they believe. And when the real communists tell you what they believe, fucking believe them. Like, this is what they believe. This is who they are. They do not like the American Communist Party. They have never liked the American Communist Party. It has never been a real thing on the far left. And let this be a lesson, everyone, too. Just because someone has Twitter followers literally doesn't mean anything. Just because someone has followers does not mean they're doing things in the real world. Just because someone says they're relevant doesn't mean they're actually relevant. Just because someone says they're a communist doesn't actually mean that they're a communist. Just because a conservative says someone else is a communist doesn't mean they're a communist. You have to actually listen to what these people are saying. You have to actually look at what they're doing. You have to look at how they're integrating into the larger landscape. The American Communist Party was never a real thing. It was never relevant. And stop listening to people who just have a lot of Twitter followers. It's dumb. People who have a lot of Twitter followers just spend a lot of time on Twitter. And they probably don't accomplish a whole hell of a lot. Because I promise you, nothing good comes from spending that much time on Twitter. All right, so that is our video number 1. I thought that was pretty clear. But I'm going to be honest, I'm actually really interested in what this video has to say. This video is about drama. This video is about intrigue and gossip. And apparently, this is a YouTube channel called Socialism for All, Intensify Class Struggle. And, you know, I'm not entirely sure who these people are, if I'm honest about it. I've heard of them, but I've never really looked into it. But let me just look at their channel real quick. Oh, look, they've got the abolition of private property in their banner. Like, can we be more clear about this? The Socialism for All YouTube channel literally has the abolition of private property in their banner. Let's just see what they have for videos. Let's see. Oh, they've got Marxist Capital. Okay, they've got the entire reading of that. That's very communist. They've got some stuff about Zoran Mandami. It definitely does look communist, if I'm being honest about it. Capitalism crashes, okay. American Communist Party defectors. Oh, is this what we're watching? This is the one we're watching, I think. All right, I think that this looks like a credible source of information about the American Communist Party's drama. And so we're just going to watch and we're going to listen to what happened, and we're going to enjoy learning about the inner workings of the fake Communist Party that has a lot of social media followers.
Hey, welcome to Socialism for All. Today's date is January 23rd, 2025. And about 6 months ago, a group of reactionaries pretending to be communists founded the American quote-unquote Communist Party. Prominent early members included Jimmy Dore regular Jackson Hinkle, quote-unquote MAGA communist infracell, members of the Midwestern Mussolini Institute, Chris Halali of the PCUSA.
Are they actually calling themselves the Midwestern Mussolini Institute, or is this just a, like, what is going on with Midwestern Marx? Do they actually call themselves that, or is that just a slur? I haven't checked in with Midwestern Marx in a while. MidwesternMarx.com. Hang on. I'm only asking this because we've had 2 different videos now calling them the Midwestern Mussolini Institute. So why are they calling them that? No, they're not. So that's just like all the communists know that Midwestern Marx and the Midwestern Mussolini Institute. That's funny.
And assorted other characters who had previously been associating in this sort of LaRoucheite pseudo-Marxist thing that had been coalescing for some time. We've been commenting on these people periodically over the last few years because it has been a disruptive influence for people trying to study and discuss Marxism-Leninism online. It took a lot of people by surprise that they would actually attempt to form a party, given the complete lack of real-world managerial or people skills. But as Infracell is one of the main drivers of this thing, and his channel's popularity has been leveling off quite a bit in the last year, so I don't know, maybe an effort to pump up the numbers had something to do with it. But in any case, these people, who seem to be dedicated to shitcoding communism in the face of a looming, massive crisis of global capitalism, seem to have suffered a public setback last week, or maybe their handlers are just looking for a new public face of this organization, when several members on Twitter, which is where these people seem to be most concentrated, started doing some simultaneous, apparently coordinated criticism of the main leader as a deranged, narcissistic cult leader type of figure. And basically most of the commenters were like, yeah, that's what we told you 6 months ago when this thing launched. I mean, so many different organizations wrote about this thing when it launched, as it represented the worst and most suspicious tendencies, basically just kind of like warmed over fascism, between the open love for Russian fascist Alexander Dugin, the Lyndon LaRouche connections, and the Schiller Institute connections, the kind of neo-Browderist patriotic socialism stuff, the bigotry, the anti-LGBTQ+, the anti-woman stuff. It just really went on and on. As I mentioned, Infracell was already known for this. Jackson Hinkle, also a Jimmy Dore regular, and definitely in that vein. Chris Halali, having been a member of the Nazbol PCUSA, which did a lot of the same stuff. I'm sure that Caleb Maupin would have been here also, except he was already burned by a previous sexual exploitation scandal in his own previous organization, so I think he was out as far as, trying to get this thing off the ground. But here we are 6 months later, and Twitter users Bree KB, Jinx Jackman, and Danny Shaw all came out with pretty elaborate statements criticizing the ACP. In particular, Danny Shaw, who is a sociology professor in the City University of New York system, wrote 3 articles titled "To All of My Comrades in the American Communist Party," on the cultishness and liberalism of Ali Haz Hamoud, and the Haz al-Din ACP cult through the lens of traumatizing narcissism, in which he goes into a lot of detail about the kind of horribly toxic shit going on in these groups. Although really anybody joining this group with the kind of past and associations that the co-founders had, I mean, I don't know really what you were expecting or how you're going to make it better when most of the people were attracted to it because of, not in spite of, its revisionist, basically anti-communist orientation. We had covered in a video a few months ago about how Infracell, during one of the streams, was instructing the ACP chapters that they needed to be businesses generating revenue and that they were going to leave it up to them kind of businesses they were to become, and that the national leadership was going to tax them once they started generating revenue. Why? Not to build infrastructure, but just because, quote, we brought you together. Okay, definitely not suspicious. Also, when asked point blank, can chapters become landlords? The answer was, quote, literally yes. Okay, nothing suspicious here. So we are—
Communists hate landlords because landlords own private property and exploit people they rent to, yada, yada, yada.
Are going to read the letters of resignation from John Malera, who was running the Jinx Jackman account on Twitter, and also the letter of resignation from Bree KB, the latter of which in particular gets into a lot of detail. But what we're going to show first is a video posted by Danny Shaw on Twitter from one of the ACP calls, in which John Malera Jackman raises some concerns to Infracell, and you can see how it went. Spoiler alert, after the tirade of shouted slurs and insults delivered at top volume, he literally tells him to come on his show and debate him. And as you watch these, ask yourself, is this something that you would want to be involved in? Would you be able to listen to somebody like this shouting at you? And doesn't it just sound like every other grifter out there trying to get a whole streaming scam going that you eventually see on one of those YouTube channels that does like little documentaries on the rise and fall of this or that e-celeb, that do like peek behind the curtain at the abusive work environment, etc. It's about 8 minutes long.
All I need to say. That is exactly what
I'm a human fucking being and not a robot. You're right. I've never pretended to be anything but human, John.
You were the one telling me not to be emotional on Friday.
No, I'm very fucking emotional right now, what you're doing. I'm very fucking emotional that you're insulting every single person here to take up our time to commit work.
So this is Haz. This is the head of the American Communist Party, of people who don't know. And he's fighting with all the other people.
To fucking throw this fucking theatrical bullshit performance and hijack all of our fucking time without even having given us a single warning. Have some fucking decency.
Look at this. This is why I can no longer serve in a party in a leadership capacity without compromising the structural integrity insisted by insisted on by leadership and because of behaviors like that. And so I'm duty bound. I'm duty bound.
Okay, you're saving the party by fucking quitting. Then do it, John. Maybe if that helps you sleep at night, then fucking do it.
I can say it more calmly than Haas, but this is extremely stupid what you're doing. I mean, you're pivotal. We cannot do this without you or people like you. And I don't understand the logic at all. Like, you're literally being emotional about it in a deep way, not in a like in a loud Haas way. You're just being emotional in like a baby sort of way. Like, it's going to be hard for months and months, if not years.
Look,
Like,
I
what are
want to
you
say
doing?
something. I'd like to say something without anyone interrupting me, please, because people have been doing that. I feel like I'm getting my comeuppance. John, you know how essential you've been to this party and are going forward. You know the position you're in and how important the work that you do is. I just want to say, if this were me, if I was in your position, I felt the way you did, etc. I just want to ask you to think about who you are and what the party is. Is the party the most important
That's
thing
Noah,
if
by
you
the way.
take your skills away from it? Or
That's
are you the
Midwestern
most
Marx.
important thing? Because here's me. Look, hold on. I'm not done just yet. Here's what I think. I was attacked legally, and you helped with this, right? I don't want to be doing what I'm doing. I'm fighting for my job right now. I should be dealing with work stuff, but I'm here, right? I don't even know how I'm going to take care of my family, but I'm putting the party first. And I get pissed off at people. I get pissed off at Haas too, right? But I come to him with it, and we talk it out. That's how I've dealt with it. And I'm not always perfect with everybody on the executive board. We have more fights in there than you would even think. But I know that the work I do and the position I'm in can only be done by me right now. We're in the very early stages of this party, and everything we do matters. So I put the party first, and I don't take my work away. If I'm not in charge of the money, who is there that everyone trusts? Who? Nobody, right? So I do the work, even though I'd rather be with my family, even though I got to figure out my job.
Yeah, we can work out
the party first
issues
because I think that this party can change this country. And I know you think that too. And everybody's heated right now. We just got to cool down. This meeting is about work. I really want us to I think that if we do the work, people can cool down while that work's being done. That's all.
Just don't leave. Don't leave.
And you're talking about Friday.
Short-sighted.
The rational kernels of Friday have already been shown in the two meetings that they were taken to be serious. Everyone's been here on time. Everything's been conducted since the last meeting correctly. So, and we admitted to the things that were brought up where there was reason, we admitted it. But there was a whole lot of things on Friday that were based on one-sided understandings of dilemmas, on things that you guys in the Politburo don't know that you don't know, because it's not your place to know, because they're based on conversations in the executive board. So you're pivoting to me. Oh, why wasn't I louder in the meeting on Friday? Because the rational kernels were teased out and the changes were made, and we're going to show them in these meetings. But I don't get how, from a meeting of the kind that happened Friday, where the grievances were aired, and I thought the spirit that Danny put in the Politburo was the one that everyone shared. This was, it was dark the way that it went through, but it's a positive and a higher step in the party. I thought that's how everyone felt. I thought that's how you felt in the times that we have talked. How do you go from that to quitting? You literally got an avenue that you wouldn't have gotten it in the PSL. You wouldn't have gotten it in CPU. There's no party in this country that would have given you the opportunity to sit in front of all of leadership and freely air out your comments. If you're not satisfied with that, then I don't know what else to expect.
And we've criticized Haas to his face. I wanted
Look, Eddie, I think it's clear. John has an issue with me, which is fine. If you have an issue with me, come on Infrared and bitch at me on my stream. Don't waste everyone's time here and make it a problem for everyone else. Okay. You have a problem with me, then confront me. Don't bother everyone else here and waste their time.
I'm confronting you right now, Haas.
Confront me in a way that's not wasting the hard work and time of literally everyone else here then. Confront me one-on-one, John. Confront me one-on-one.
Is this what I sound like when I yell? I need everyone to be honest with me right now. I promise I won't get mad, okay? I'm not going to yell at anyone. I'm not going to ban anyone. As long as you're not a dick about it, don't be an asshole. Is this what... Do I sound like Haas when I yell? Okay. You can be honest. You can be honest. It's okay. Okay. John Morgan, fuck you. John Morgan is betraying me right now, and I don't like it. John Morgan knows he can get away with it. That's why he's doing it. John Morgan disavowed.
You have
Okay,
imbued
okay,
psychological
this table.
inertia you have imbued on the party has created this dominant.
John, shove the psychology up your fucking yuppie faggot ass. Nobody fucking cares about hearing your bullshit right now.
I never said that.
Is this really your? Do you really feel good about this?
You're a faggot. I don't want to hear a fucking thing from you.
Do you really feel good about
No
this?
need for
That's
this.
all I want to ask you. Danny, do you have anything to weigh in?
Very communist.
John, you have a problem with me that's so personal? Then settle it personally. Stop fucking dragging the party down because of this really weird fucking gay issue you have with me. That's so personal and intimate. I don't even fucking know who you are.
You cut me off. You don't want to hear it. It's you.
When did you reach out to me? You're only doing it as a stage so that it's the whole fucking theater. You've never reached out to me even one fucking time to tell me whatever issue you have.
When I brought it,
Everybody here has set a time to do work. They have set aside time to do work, John. Not hear your fucking personal issues that you have with me. Nobody fucking cares. They want to get the fucking work done.
Wow.
Why can't we respect people's time?
The rank and file care. You care about that?
If you want to confront me in front of the rank and file, do it on my fucking stream because I promise they're watching.
Your stream is not just the rank and file. The rank and file is not just
You want to then debate me live in front of the rank and file at the next event. I promise you, John. Go ahead and fucking do it. But don't waste everyone's time here. Let's actually schedule and plan something then. Don't come unprovoked to turn this into a fucking stage for your theatrics.
Really interesting projection there. So going into the written statement now from John Malera, who has gone by John Jackman and was on Twitter as Jenks Jackman. It reads as follows: my resignation from the quote ACP. Comrades and friends, it is with both sorrow and hope that I have resigned from the quote American Communist Party, which continues to be in quotes. The American Communist Party was our dream. We saw the potential for a movement that could unite the working class and give the political interests of American workers unity, coherence, and direction. I saw the insightful theories and talent for communication within the party, did you know, and a commitment to the vision of a socialist America that stood decisively and unapologetically against the ruling capitalist class. We committed with heart and soul to build upon this vision, to work to support our party members, promote the work of our leaders, and establish a true communist party. Unfortunately, I am duty-bound to report that the failure to establish a dynamic of accountability among leadership has resulted in worrying and potentially irreversible cult-like tendencies, which have fostered a culture of mismanagement and disconnection from the working class, paranoia, information control, and intimidation. This dynamic is laying the groundwork for potential abuses which could seriously damage the cause of the working class and further insult the image of communism. In hindsight, these cultish tendencies contextualize shortcomings and mistakes in the party formation of initial leadership, the constitution drafting process, the policies pursued such as the anti-DSA policy, and priority of chapter enterprises, the recruitment process where the priority was to build up numbers quickly, the fixation of fighting online slander bait, and even in the behavior and example set by some top party members, which often was lacking the dignity and humility befitting of the name communist. After I became aware of a slate of improper conduct by the top quote leader, I realized that we were being tested subconsciously about how much lack of accountability we could take. 2 weeks ago, I raised urgent issues with party leadership to draw attention to the leadership failures and cult-like tendencies undermining the party. I asked for the, quote, chairman to be held to account and self-criticized for repeatedly missing party meetings, which people sacrifice time away from their jobs and families to attend, putting his stream and self-interests ahead of the work of the party, engaging in crude and embarrassing behavior, and for manipulating internal party dynamics in a way which flew in the face of the basic tenets that make democratic centralism work: unity in action, cadre development, freedom of discussion, criticism, and self-criticism. In my position of leadership, I witnessed a haphazard construction of the Constitution that undermined its credibility, lending to a level of confusion from cadre and inconsistency of its application. In the lead-up to the ACP convention, some of the harder-working individuals in leadership drafted a party constitution weeks in advance with multiple revisions. However, the, quote, chairman, I believe referring to Infracell here, did not review the Constitution until the night before the convention. In fact, on the night before the convention, he further put off critical Constitution drafting to deliver a surreal, in-real-life stream he presided over us. And we listened to him talk about his travels when we should have been working together. In the 11th hour, he contrived an error-filled Constitution before a ratification, in quotes, at a national convention attended by over 100 people who put their full trust in him. As he wrote the document, which represented the dream of dozens of youthful Marxist-Leninists, he made jokes and blamed the people who had spent weeks thinking about the Constitution for messing everything up. And I just have to comment here, you've seen this guy's streams, right? He's been online for years now, like several years. You have seen the way that he treats people, the way that he responds to criticism, the way that he's just constantly in this altered state of consciousness. Like, what exactly did you think you were going to be doing when joining a party organized by and around this individual? Really, what did you think was going to happen? Is this like I didn't think they were going to eat my face kind of situation or what? Anyway, continuing, he wasn't interested in getting advice from experienced comrades. He was interested in us reading his mind to reflect what he wanted. Following the convention, the priorities of the party development were driven by leadership's flawed formulations, such as emphasizing the development of chapter enterprises without an appreciation for the challenges and sacrifices of such an undertaking. You don't say, like, this whole thing was a not very well thought through money-making scam. That's kind of what I think. And absent consideration of the lack of resources National had to support such initiatives. I became troubled that the, quote, chairman was going on stream to prompt supporters to start chapter enterprises and providing false hopes to members who were ready to make personal investments to get their enterprise ideas off the ground. Instead of building our cadre up step by step, our leaders were in a rush to build up numbers to establish an illusion of credibility. To be certain, there are talented comrades in our chapters, but there are an overwhelming number that we don't really know, or who do not participate in party activities, or who are not reliable and principled cadre, opening the party up to operational security risks and confusing the practice of our cadre. I believe that if the leadership was capable enough...
You mean things that are just social media stunts to appear bigger and more influential than they actually are don't have members that take it seriously? Wow.
We could work through these problems and correct course, but my confidence was shattered once I raised sincere criticisms directly to leadership. Instead of dutifully holding themselves to account, the chairman deflected and blamed the treachery of the Politburo and made excuses for himself. He dominated the whole conversation, and none of the members of the so-called executive board spoke up to demand accountability from him. But they did tone police the Politburo members raising criticisms. They left their comrades and friends out to dry. They did not man up and fulfill their duties as communists to safeguard the party against cult-like tendencies that were acting as a fetter on party development and could raise the potential for future abuses. They seemed to care more about getting personal approval of the chairman and protecting their platforms than doing the right thing. Are you shocked? Like, I don't really... Like, everyone told you it was going to be like this online. When this thing formed, everyone said this. Why are you surprised? Anyway, maybe this person, by the way, is their lawyer. So they're screwed without him right now, because I think they have another person coming up who is going to be a lawyer soon. But for the time being, this guy's name is on all their paperwork and they're completely screwed without him. So, you know, good luck with that. But seriously, like, was this person just joining to sort of confirm what everybody knew? And in any case, that's what is being done here. But disappointing was an understatement, or entirely predictable. I mean, again, have you seen this guy's streams? Any of his online behavior? It's childish, it's laughable, it's truly ridiculous.
Has anyone ever actually watched Hawes's streams? I've never watched Hawes's streams before. What does he go by? Maybe I can just look it up. What is Hawes's YouTube name? I have literally never even watched his stuff before. Infrared? That's his YouTube channel. Let's just look real quick. Let's just look. Let's just see. What does Hawes have on his YouTube channel? See, this is why YouTube views are never correlated with actually things that matter. Like the fake communist gets so many like fake views. Hawes on Tim Pool with Trevor Loudon pretending to be a communist. He's not even doing anything on his channel. This stuff is all old. Okay, he had another channel too. It's got this one. Is he doing anything on this one? He hasn't posted anything here in months. Oh, he responded to, he did a 3.5-hour response to the video we're watching right now. Socialism for All is a lie. Oh, poor Hawes. Poor Hawes. It's all over.
I mean, worthy of all the ridicule that it gets. So when I resigned to leadership over a week ago with my accompanying criticisms, I was shouted down with slurs in another cultish spectacle, prevented from even giving my remarks to a group I had sacrificed and given so much time and energy to support. A member of leadership who will remain anonymous sent a recording of the discussion after I'd left the meeting. Here, the chairman plotted on how to trick me into coming back to do the work they needed until they could replace me. None of the executive leadership pushed back on this duplicity. Any possibility of returning to my leadership role was now totally foreclosed. Notorious cults have arisen from this type of enablement. I've had to painfully reflect on my responsibility in all this. Yeah, I'd love to hear some additional reflections on that because, you know, all the people that you're complaining about were known quantities beforehand, so I'd really love to know what you were thinking getting into bed with them. Anyway, what happened in my case was a signal to other members not to dare to stand up to, quote, leadership. I was astonished and crushed watching this play out. Whiffs of past dangerous and abusive political cults were becoming an undeniable stench. Really, a group that looks up to Lyndon LaRouche was becoming a cult? You don't say. Over the past weeks, I've tried my best to do the right thing despite how difficult it has been. I don't feel like a hero. Yeah, you're definitely not a hero in my opinion. You are a villain who is trying to help build the ACP, despite what it was, and apparently have just started to realize some little piece of what the rest of us already knew. Anyway, I feel like I lost my community. You're better off without it. For months, I played a role in the dynamics plaguing the party today. I decided to do the work that I believed in and kept pushing this forward. And for months, my excitement to be part of this community overshadowed the problems that I saw unfolding. And just to speak to that for a second, there's a part in the video where they're saying to him, like, what other party would have given you this opportunity? It definitely has that reek of like, you can't leave, no one will ever love you like we do, when it's entirely self-serving. I participated in and promoted the work of ACP and its leaders like it was my job, just like many others. I was gone in my own way. I didn't want to cause problems. I could go along to get along. I bought into the fixation of leaders toward online optics and the need to ruthlessly ratio our enemies. Kind of like this whole thing is actually a social media grift. And I joined in on the paranoid obsession to identify and snuff out wreckers. I can see now that this kind of activity simply provided the dopamine and adrenaline rush that diligently and patiently building up the cadre and uncovering the correct proletarian line through practice did not. And again, a group that is about Dugin and LaRouche, etc., is never going to get to the correct proletarian line except to oppose it. Anyway, I too had faith that the executive board would sort itself out and I didn't need to get too involved, but I could do everything in my power to help them meet their objectives. This could have kept going. If I had been younger or at a different stage of my life, who knows how long I would have stayed in or waited to raise concerns. Nevertheless, I don't want to paint the experiment of ACP or its leadership as all negative. We did a lot of good work. We inspired people to support their communities. We built relationships among dedicated and principled Marxist-Leninists across the country. You're going to need some additional reflection, but we made insightful contributions to Marxist theory in the internet age. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Keep reflecting, because you got a long way to go here. There is so much beauty in all of this, and there is a real substance connected to the ACP that we can build from. However, it has become clear to me that the leadership is not fighting to build the forces of the proletariat. They're fighting ghosts manifested by delusions and addictive online compulsions, wonder who he's talking about, which will further alienate our already alienated youth. After great collective deliberation and speaking to some of the most dedicated, principled, and hard-working comrades within our rank and file, as well as experienced Marxist-Leninist organizers who decided not to join the party due to concerns, would love to hear more about that, I came to realize that I would be neglecting my responsibility as a leader not to warn our comrades about the troubling dynamics I witnessed among leadership and some of the sadistic and maladapted behaviors which could result in further damage to the cause of building a working class movement and create lasting trauma for the ACP membership. I leave you with this message now because it is the best thing I know how to do in the current moment, to try to correct past mistakes, recognize my own arrogance, and to protect others. It took me time to see all of this and become aware of what was developing. I know this will be controversial to many who have followed my work. I will be labeled a wrecker, a fed, disloyal, and a traitor. My loyalty has always been to the American people. My resignation and statement are motivated by nothing other than a sincere concern and commitment to our people and the cause of the working class. You will be arrogantly told that party leadership inherently represents the cause of the proletariat, but as good Marxists, we know that the correct proletarian line can only be informed by practice and dialectically analyzing our material realities, including the reality of the development of the party. Leadership neglects such an analysis. The difficult truth is that the leadership of the ACP poses a danger to the cause of the working class that it claimed to represent. With respect and great love for the people, John Molera, parentheses Jackman. So now to close, let's read the statement from Bree KB, formerly on Twitter as Bree KB_, regarding the American Communist Party. In light of the recent high-profile resignations from 2 American Communist Party Politburo members, I'd like to offer my own thorough critique of the ACP. I've kept these reflections privately on the back burner since I resigned, but now is the time to share them. Today, I will reflect on my time as the North Carolina chapter executive of the American Communist Party. I joined the ACP shortly after its launch in the summer of 2024, and I resigned in December. I am compelled to write the statement for several reasons. One, the ACP is a rapidly self-cannibalizing organization that, under the present corrupt leadership, will waste the time, energy, and motivation of all its members. Two, the ACP is toxic to the development of the American working masses. 3, my association with the ACP is well known online, and I faced continual harassment from affiliates ever since I left the group, kind of like a cult, in part because few seem to understand why I left, and the countless hours I spent trying to improve the organization to no avail. So comment, I think that experience is one that many of us have had who have been involved in more than one organization. I know that I've had experiences where I felt that the organization I was in was making obvious mistakes and not really doing what it needed to do, suffering, again, just painfully obvious failure after failure, and having to bail on that, but not really having bad blood between me and the people who are still in it. But then there have been other situations where it's more like a gang, or again, a cult. And this is one of the things you really got to watch out for, and that is a truly toxic organization. Anyway, on the so-called American Communist Party. The American Communist Party is a triple misnomer. The group is neither American, nor communist, nor a party. Okay. The ACP is a cult of personality, with the top ranks filled by narcissists, cowards, and self-interested grifters, shrouded in a veil of legitimacy by the rank-and-file membership and their well-intentioned but woefully unskilled and disconnected work. Most ACP members are completely ignorant to the dynamics of leadership. As hero of the party, and hero and party are capitalized, so I'm guessing that's a title in the party, and a once powerful chapter executive, I was relatively well acquainted with the true inner workings of the party. Let me help illuminate the truth. And, we haven't addressed it head on yet, but this statement is written by a woman, albeit one who saw fit to join the ACP in the first place, despite tons of people telling her on Twitter what she was going to find there, and despite all of Infracel's stream history being available. But yeah, if women hold up half the sky, the ACP has had a major issue since its founding. It's a bunch of dudes, exclusively, and seeming to lean toward gym bros specifically. And at that, gym bros who have like no awareness that they are not like the norm in US culture. Like these are guys with such little self-awareness that they cannot see anything that they do as not normal or like a product of their specific subculture and particular toxic idea of masculinity. Like literally they seem unable to relate to anyone else or to understand why others view.
The communists are calling the American Communist Party toxic masculinity. Oh. Oh, this is so great.
A lot of their behavior is repugnant, or at a minimum, really immature. All right, let's continue with Bree's statement. The executive leadership of the ACP purports to uphold the American proletarian mass line, but we have no American proletarian mass movement, and the ACP has no plan or ability to build one. So what line are they really upholding? Their own. The cult of personality surrounding Haz al-Din. Come on, you're just using his supervillain name. You're feeding the psychosis. It's infracel. Relies on people believing he has some unique access to communist knowledge and truth. Despite his doing zero work on the ground, hey, wait a minute, that's not fair. He went to that Trump rally in the ill-fitting suit that still had the sticker on it, tried to pitch communism to them. Okay, yeah, that doesn't count. And living completely isolated from the American people. Clearly, such a perspective is both predatory and fundamentally anti-communist. In Infracel's geopolitical postmodernist theory, with threads of Trotskyism if Trotsky had been a total failure...
It's like, you know, I'm just thinking about how, obviously we all knew, anyone with a working brain that understands the far left understood that the American Communist Party was bullshit from the very start. Everyone with a working brain understood that Haz was never some great communist leader. Like all you had to do was literally listen to the guy and then listen to the real far left and hear the disconnect. But it is an exceptional reminder that content creators are nothing more than bullshit con artists. This is what listen. You never have to take my word for anything. I tell people all the time, don't fucking trust me at all. I'm a content creator on the internet, man. I sometimes have to do things that are frankly underhanded. And you shouldn't trust me at all. Because sometimes I do lie just to get information, and sometimes I do say things just to see what people will do. And sometimes I build alliances with people I don't even like because I think it'll be a valuable thing. This is just what you have to do to exist in this world. And I exist on the very periphery of this world because I actually don't want to be an underhanded, intellectually dishonest asshole. But you still have to do things, and sometimes things are just funny, and sometimes, you know, you do things to create content because it's going to be amusing, it's going to be an arc, it's going to be like whatever. And that's just what you have to do, I think, to survive on the internet long term. I don't think you can do it without it. But for the core of my content, you literally never have to trust me for anything because I just sit here and I watch the videos. And we talk about the videos, and you can see exactly what people are saying. You can see exactly what they're doing. And so don't trust me, just watch the evidence, right? But the vast majority of content creators on the internet are just con artists. They're just bullshit artists. They're just, and they trust that people are too lazy to actually look into things because, quite frankly, most people are too lazy to actually look into things. You look at someone like Tim Pool, man. Tim Pool, what a waste. What a waste. I've thought this from the very beginning. What a waste. This guy thinks he's above everyone. This guy thinks he knows everything about everything. And most of the time, Tim is fucking retarded. And it's sad and pathetic because a lot of people watch Tim just to hate watch him. And he could be bringing on really interesting guests, and he could be having really interesting conversations. Instead, Haz al-Din is the type of person he brings on. Another bullshit con artist. Because the entire ecosystem, and this is why I don't really associate with any of these people. I don't want to be around these people. It's just bullshit con artists talking and working with other bullshit con artists. And it's upsetting after a while, to be honest. It's like blackpilling. It's like, I understand that, you know, to a certain extent there needs to be like entertainment, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like these people think that internet drama and clout farming and rage baiting and all this stuff, they think it amounts to something real, and it just doesn't. And maybe it's because I got into this when I was older and I actually know how to build real things in the real world, and it's just like I can't be around these people. It's too blackpilling.
Social media war is paramount. Why? Because social media is the only way Infracell and his ilk have relevance or authority, and because social media is one of the main ways the ACP Executive Board gets paid. And that's true because straight from the horse's mouth, Infracell says in another clip that Danny Shaw leaked that his channel is what he's living off of. And as we showed before, at least on YouTube, its momentum is slowing way down. He's only been getting like 100 subscribers a month for a number of months now. Hence the panic, I believe. And hence the we are going to tax the individual branches of ACP. Why? Because we brought you together. Because he wants to live off of you, that's why. That's why they're starting this stupid fucking party that is obviously going nowhere. It's a cult. And, you know, just getting money from streams isn't enough. He needs to, you know, have you go start a car wash or something so that he can get a cut. Anyway, it is also through social media that Infracell is irrevocably bound to Jackson Hinkle, who has a much broader and artificially boosted reach. And by the way, if you ever want to look at Jackson Hinkle's replies, it's two types of people. People who hate him and MAGA people. That's it. So he has a right-wing audience and actual communists really dislike him intensely.
Yep.
Infracell has previously stated that Jackson and he are one and the same, and this is why Infracell needs Jackson. Thus, the controversial personae of our executive board members and their relationships to other public figures are in fact integral to the party itself. Certain prominent ACP personalities are frequently and intentionally marred in immature debates, inflammatory statements, and highly questionable endorsements. In typical narcissist fashion, both Infracell and Jackson fashion themselves as petty Henry Kissingers, masters of realpolitik. I can't even reach down far enough for the sad laugh that, if true, that statement, okay, there, it came out. Infracell, what are you doing? This is just such a cancer on the landscape. It's so sad, it's so silly, it's so stupid, and everyone seems to know it but you. Do you really want to end up the washout that you're headed for being? I mean, you have time now. You are still ridiculous, but there's still time to grow up. Think of me like an older brother right now. I know you're almost 30, but there is time. You're on a path to nowhere. You have time to turn this around. There's time to stop. There's time to do something else with your life instead. You can wipe the slate clean. You can move on and start a new chapter. Not of a cult, but of your life. You know, it's important. You only get one, and you're completely wasting it. There's so much more to life. There's so much more enjoyment that you can have. There's so much more positivity and fulfillment that you can experience. I know you're unhappy. I mean, it's written all over your face. Every time you open your mouth, how angry and miserable and frustrated you are is all anyone hears. You know, it's not working, and you're going to get yourself into bad trouble eventually. All right, I tried. Continuing, a political approach that is inherently and specifically anti-communist, talking about realpolitik, as it is the American capitalist alternative to dialectics. They believe that they can uniquely connect all the strings of the world through their personal, suspiciously high-profile connections, and thus they can successfully foment a world proletarian revolution. This is, of course, preposterous. The rest of the executive board is inclined to promote the public misdeeds of Jackson because it makes them more money, feeds their fragile egos, and reinforces their misogynistic worldview. And there's an example of a Jackson Hinkle tweet, never underestimate the evil lengths they will go. Who's they? Should it be in 3 parentheses? After all, they killed Jesus. Wonder what this is about. You're Nazis, guys. No, it's not everything I don't like is Hitler. Although increasingly, as late-stage capitalism gets closer and closer to its final crisis, yes, it will go into fascism to try to preserve itself against the coming proletarian revolution. Like, actual left liberals are increasingly difficult to find that aren't embracing fascism in some way. But this is outright Nazi trope stuff, and he tweets it all the time. Very, very clear pattern. Continuing, outside of social media, the American Communist Party's greatest strength lies in its international relations. The executive board's and Politburo's extensive international contacts, along with the unusually impressive work, of Christopher Halali, the nefarious and unsavory contacts of Jackson Hinkle, and the professional network of the well-respected Danny Shaw. And again, I don't really know much about Danny Shaw, as I don't really use Twitter anymore, but maybe somebody knows in the comments, continuing have rapidly carved a place for ACP's rhetoric in the international political arena. I mean, not really, but we'll leave that one alone for now. These external relationships are carefully cultivated and prioritized by the executive board. Where are Americans in this? Where is the concern for the advancement of the working class? Where is the elevation of proletarian consciousness? The top two priorities of the executive board are 1, the leadership's social media petty fiefdom, and 2, cultivating international contacts of widely varying quality, integrity, and relevance. Domestic concerns are wholly relegated to the inept but typically well-meaning rank and file. Yeah, if the rank and file are the average mecha-tanky trolls on Twitter, they are not well-meaning. And they're overworked, under-resourced chapter executives. The, quote, patriotism of the ACP, so maligned by leftists, is in truth just an aesthetic veneer. Hey, dumbass, that's pretty much what we were saying. This whole rah-rah, let's wave the American flag, bourgeois nationalist bullshit really has nothing to do with Lenin's concept of celebrating the successes of the class struggle achieved in your local culture. The emphasis at all times is on proletarian internationalism, with the simultaneous recognition that the struggle is won and launched within more of a national context just because of scale. But really, any kind of morale-building force about the capabilities of the people involved is something to be highlighted, but not in a way that's gonna dovetail at all with the reactionary nature of bourgeois nationalism. Anyway, this is a whole other discussion we've already had. But her point is that it's just an aesthetic veneer. Yes, and a stupid one at that. I mean, that's a really bad strategy that's gonna be alienating to the more advanced masses, which they're just sneeringly writing off as leftists in pursuit of the golden demographic of the reactionary white male worker. Like, that's the problem here. It's a LARP, and it's a LARP with a bad intention behind it. Anyway, continuing, I had to fight for the ACP to even acknowledge and release a statement on the horribly devastating Hurricane Helene, and even when I convinced the executive board, I had to write the statement entirely by myself. Furthermore, my criticism of the blatant statistical errors in the party's Public Veterans Day statement were ignored. Why? The executive board cared more about tweet views than accuracy. On the internal dysfunction of the ACP, let's be clear, there's a wide gulf between the executive board and everyone else in the party. The executive board operates as a clique with its own interests, removed from the members and the activities of the chapters. The ACP executive board appoints its own advisory Politburo and has no central committee nor any system of accountability for its leadership. The entire executive board and Politburo are unelected, and this will not change for the next 1 to 2 years as per the ACP constitution. And let's review. Infracell said that he's living off of his channel, so obviously he doesn't want anything that could jeopardize that. He may wind up with it anyway, but that's what he's trying to avoid. Next in the hierarchy are the chapter executives, elected by the rank and file of their state chapters. However, there's a total schism, or divide, between these lower tiers of ACP, the chapter executives and rank and file, and the upper tiers, the executive board and Politburo. The only communication between the two is top-down, usually in the form of random, urgent orders. As I've alluded to, the work of the chapters is completely decentralized and varies widely in quantity and quality. This system, which once gave me much hope for my ability to succeed and materialize change as a communist in my community, allowed me to accomplish a great deal very quickly as the chapter executive for my state. However, the system also left us all with detrimentally little guidance and oversight. Yeah, because they don't care. They just want money from you eventually. Generally, the executive board took exceedingly little interest in the work of its members unless and until it caught the executive board's attention on social media. If the attention was negative, the punishment was swift and severe. I'd love to hear more about that. If the attention was positive, you could be exalted to the most unusual heights. This is how I was awarded Hero of the American Communist Party so quickly, despite my history of disagreement with members of the executive board. I simply made the party look really good in public. As hero of the party and one of the most successful chapter executives, was I ever asked to educate other members on the lessons we learned along the way so that others may replicate our success? Of course not. On chapter enterprises, I'll reflect for a moment on the painfully misguided and understudied failure of one of the party's least realistic ideas, chapter enterprises. These small businesses were intended to fund the party and integrate the ACP into our communities. However, how on earth could a bunch of young, 20-something-year-old men, again, it's always men, with little to no job experience or financial or business knowledge, somehow launch successful businesses across the country with no support at all whatsoever from the party? They can't and they haven't. Chapter businesses are dead in the water. Starting small business.
Communists don't even believe in businesses. Communists want to get rid of all businesses. They want to get rid of all private property.
Businesses as party members is merely a further abstraction from the masses. Lenin said to go to the masses, not isolate.
So essentially, for these quote unquote enterprises or businesses to be successful, it's just about literally giving money to Haas. That's all this was. Is like, so they don't believe in private property. They don't believe in personal accumulation. They don't believe in restricting access to resources. So literally they were telling chapters to go out and start these businesses or enterprises just so Haas could have money. That's fucking crazy.
Ourselves in our own petty businesses, hoping to one day have a large enough business to organize the proletariat. Yeah, so businesses are not the class organ of the proletariat. That would be labor unions. And as we know, capitalism gets its profits from extracting surplus labor.
Hey guys, did you know that labor unions are the organizing of the proletariat? That's an interesting little quote, isn't it? Labor unions are the organizing union of the organizing mechanism of the proletariat.
Said to go to the masses, not isolate ourselves in our own petty businesses, hoping to one day have a large enough business to organize the proletariat. Yeah, so businesses are not the class organ of the proletariat. That would be labor unions. And as we know, capitalism gets its profits from extracting surplus labor from workers. So like literally that is the problem we're trying to end. It's so goofy. It's such a bad idea, but it is so about infracell getting your money. So yeah, if you start a business, the profits of that business are coming from the surplus value that you're extracting from workers. It's from exploiting labor. Anyway, such a bad idea. The idea is absurd and the execution non-existent. I do, however, understand the need to have independent funding for communist organizing. To that end, why did ACP leadership never establish or promote a way to donate to the ACP, to help fund the activities of the chapters instead of relying on members to pay out of pocket for everything? The executive leadership was too incompetent and too preoccupied with their own personal streams of income as online content creators to establish legitimate means of funding the party. As head of the Hurricane Helene relief efforts, I was told by Infracell himself that he and the party weren't exactly pleased that we had raised and mobilized so much money to serve the hard-hit communities of North Carolina, because the money that came in from our members could have gone to funding other ventures of interest to leadership. However, there was neither a mechanism nor even a plan for that to occur. On the failings and priorities of ACP leadership, working in an abstracted, nationwide, decentralized, novel system is incredibly challenging. Adding to the difficulties, the lack of a stated party strategy and vision. That could, be part of it. The long-awaited ACP manifesto has still not been produced. And as we covered here at the channel a while back, the Rise of MAGA Communism document from 2 years ago is probably as close as they have to one. And it includes the following fundamentally revisionist passage. The critique of private property doesn't mean taking property away from people. It means using political power in a way that serves the common interests of the people rather than the private interests of money. The contractual forms of association between the people, which allow people to secure their rights of ownership, will continue to exist far into the future.
Unironically, the American Communist Party is doing a great job of illustrating what communists actually believe by forcing communists to debunk everything the American Communist Party stands for.
And will only disappear when they are rendered unnecessary by the productive forces, when no institutional challenge to their ownership will even exist. That is Kautskite gradualism, but you also hear it echoed in modern China. What's going to abolish capitalist relations? Not class struggle, not any kind of subjective factor of the workers gaining class consciousness and struggling for revolution and to build socialism. No, it's just the productive forces. That's what's going to render capitalism, quote, unnecessary. And capitalists are, in fact, going to stop even trying to defend capitalism. And when will this occur? Far into the future. That's interesting because I believe that Lenin declared that the era of proletarian revolution had begun over 100 years ago. But now you're saying that actually capitalism is just going to continue for a long time into the future, maybe centuries, until capitalists just decide that this capitalism thing isn't worth defending anymore. The global working class can just have industry and everybody's going to shake hands and say good game. So yeah, I would expect more of that from the ACP manifesto if it ever shows up. The roles and rules for executive board members are not articulated. There is insufficient internal documentation, no onboarding call, and little guidance for anyone in the ACP, including chapter executives. This results in many questions and mistakes. Mistakes that once made are dealt with most harshly by the ACP executive board. The, quote, leadership of ACP has no leadership experience, and it shows. They have no apparent knowledge of organizational management, and they aren't interested in gaining those skills. So it really is MAGA communism, Trump style. Under the executive board's misleadership, the ACP rank and file are an unstably unified collection of two broad groups of contradictory people, those from IGG/Infracell and those from more offline backgrounds, who specifically support ACP. The former group, often called guerrillas, dogmatically back the Khan. That's another nickname for Infracell. And it's spelled Khan, although CON might also be appropriate. The ones tearing me apart on social media for leaving ACP are primarily from this group. Note too that many of these Infracell stands are not in the party and thus have no actual ability to speak on party dynamics. Although I have to add here, they're anonymous, so how would you even know? Yet they are often the vocal and ardent supporters. The offline group consists of more regular working class people who are often turned off by the antics of the guerrillas. I frequently receive messages of support from these workers. Infracell and the ACP, however, rely on the dogmatism of the guerrillas. And I don't think dogmatism is actually the appropriate word. Fanaticism is probably a better word here. Infracell, Jackson Hinkle, and the Midwestern Mussolini crew have all systematically prioritized their own streams of revenue and relevance over the party itself. Wait, are you saying that this is a social media grifter party?
Wow.
Which is what everyone was saying when it launched? I mean, thanks for confirming, I guess. Leaving other members to desperately try to pick up the slack. Jackson's only perceivable role in the party was to create introductory graphics for the new chapters and boost them on Twitter, a task he unceremoniously quit doing entirely within weeks of the party launch. Carlos from Midwestern Mussolini, the ACP Director of Education, relied on the California chapter to put together a functional educational program for all party cadre while happily taking money from members to teach unofficial Marxist courses elsewhere. Infracell prioritized his personal trip to Russia and a pointless debate with a TikToker over drafting and assembling the most fundamental and necessary party documents. The ACP Constitution and party program only exist because of the tireless, yet thankless efforts of the ACP's former law team, approved by Infracell mere hours before being presented to the rank and file. Infamously, these documents were ratified unanimously. Why? Because party members, who took time off of work and flew all the way to Chicago on their own dime to the National Convention, were not given any time whatsoever to review these documents before we were asked to vote on them. Since we weren't even able to read the founding documents of our party, it goes without saying that there was no debate or criticism of these documents whatsoever before they were ratified. Absurd. And I'd just like to highlight the irony that the ACP in the summer tried to use some of the momentum from the CPUSA's widely criticized convention to build steam for their launch. And then their convention just months later had some of the same problems. On internal criticism. Much bellyaching occurs online against me, Bree, on this point. Why did Bree not bring her criticisms to the party internally? Let it be known, I tried everything. There are simply no mechanisms for internal criticism, and my repeated demands, beginning in August of 2024, for increased organizational capacity to facilitate mechanisms of internal criticism, fell on deaf, hostile ears. The ACP is a dictatorship of the neurotic, insular, and self-interested executive board. The executive board has no capacity nor desire to understand internal criticism, let alone incorporate it to strengthen the party. Internal party communication was tightly controlled, such that chapter executives were only permitted to talk amongst themselves in the party-controlled chapter executive Telegram chat.
Wow.
Cooperation between the chapters was prohibited without the explicit permission and inclusion of Kyle Pettis, the pettiest of petty tyrants, who served as the ACP Director of Personnel and Security. Furthermore,
The
chapter
HR
executives
guy.
could only
Literally
speak to the
the
members
HR
in
guy.
their own chapter about the party, never members in any other chapter. The information ecosystem was tightly controlled by the executive board, thus making the mere mention of free internal criticism moot. And here you see a text between Kyle and Bree. Kyle says, I am also a member of the executive board telling you what the situation is. It's not open for interpretation. Bree had asked, whose place is it to determine? Pettis says, mine and the other members of the executive board. Bree says, I will not stand for the debasement of my sex. I'm happy to be brought in front of the full executive on this issue. Pettis replies, that's not how this works. I'm speaking on behalf of the board. I'm a full member of the board. This is my job. I have told you what is expected. Period. Resuming the statement, Infracell continually states that criticism is welcome within the party, but that's because the criticism must go directly to the executive board, and thus the critique will immediately be neutralized and rendered inconsequential. No meaningful disagreement is tolerated. Because of my reputation for being willing to speak up when ACP leadership errs, I've received an abundance of direct messages from ACP members since the party's launch expressing dissatisfaction with the executive board, while maintaining that they support ACP, want to remain in ACP, but do not know how to move forward and effect change. Good luck with that. Many members and even some chapter executives have expressed to me that they fear reprisals if they speak up in internal channels. They feel impotent against the executive board, and they of course are. Because I dared to work genuinely to actually strengthen the ACP instead of kowtowing to the tantrums of Infracell and his executive board enablers, I was subjected to countless hours of struggle sessions in which I was berated, demeaned, and shut down. I was threatened with being purged. At one point, I issued, at Infracell's demand, a self-criticism against my correct public critique of Jackson Hinkle's misogyny. I apologized to my fellow chapter executives for daring to state the obvious publicly about Jackson, and I urged them to help me fight for better internal means of communication. So we see an example here, a clip of a statement from 5 December 2024 written by Bree. It reads, I encourage our executive board, as I have done many times in the past, to prioritize forming the organizational capacity for grievances, concerns, and party matters to be adequately and respectfully handled internally. Party strength does not come from the dictates of above. It comes from the ability to effectively utilize the knowledge and capacity of its members for the correct leadership vision. Comrades, I encourage all of us to be willing to participate in active internal debates, even and especially when it is hard. I receive weekly and even daily messages from ACP members with concerns. Let us bring these issues out in the open within ACP and to our leadership as they arise. Party building is very challenging work. Speak plainly internally because this is the only way that our grievances can serve to strengthen the party and help lay the groundwork for true democratic centralism. Back to the statement. In response, Infracell issued a party-wide anti-Bree manifesto, in which he, one, did not share my internal self-criticism with the rank and file, thus making them believe my self-criticism didn't exist. 2, completely misrepresented my arguments, and 3, wrote 12 pages of jibber-jabber about the, quote, errors of, quote, Jackson-mongering, quote, discursive subjectivism, quote, moralism, and, quote, cultural individualism. This is not a reasonable or sane man. Through this petty political maneuvering, Infracell prioritized denigrating my reputation within the ACP over actually strengthening the party. He painted me, one of the strongest party members at the time, as a wrecker, along with all of the loyal, honest comrades who agreed with my criticisms. He further wasted everyone's time. In addition to the humiliation spectacles that I endured within the party, RTSG, the heavily foreign research collective that works in tandem with ACP leadership, represented by Rev in the Politburo, and in case you're not familiar with RTSG, here is their about statement. RTSG is an international research collective that brings reality to a world of capital F, capital N fake news. We prize our independency, I think just mean independence, reliability, and discipline. Anyway, according to Bree, this group has kept a profile on me for many months now, gathering personal background information on me, mixed with their own delusions and fabrications, without my consent to blackmail me into staying quiet should I ever raise concerns about ACP. To be sure, they have profiles on other ACP members and associates as well, wholly unbeknownst to most people. Conclusion. The ACP's lack of internal structure, combined with leadership's neglect of organizational management, disinterest in the chapters, and overt hostility to criticism, led to my departure. After leaving the ACP and reflecting on my time within the party, I have a much stronger understanding of the truth. The ACP is a cult of personality with zero respect for democratic centralism and strong financial incentives against it. Thus, ACP's shortcomings cannot be overcome. The quote, American Communist Party is a destructive force for its members, and should it continue gaining prominence, unlikely, for the American left and the American people as well. Please. The ACP is supported by nefarious international actors and tolerated by the American intelligence agencies because the ACP is actively disuniting the American people. It is a toxic den of crybaby and hypocritical leadership, propped up by the misplaced good faith of its members and popularized through right-wing media. It is not a party, it is not communist, and it is not American. And then there's an additional note saying additional screenshots showing that almost as soon as I joined in August 2024, I began asking for ACP to increase organizational capacity, the same exact internal criticisms that I was still making in December because no one in leadership cared enough to fix the issues. And unfortunately, those are no longer available, but with everything that is available, it's enough for me. So, what other opinions and positions can you form on this group at this point? It was formed by social media grifters associated with Duginist fascism and LaRoucheism, and just what exactly is the attractive element here? So, that is the bulk of the presentation. I want to thank the patrons and Buy Me a Coffee supporters for making this possible, as this is an ad-free, viewer-supported channel. Until next time, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the
All right, well, that was actually highly entertaining, and it just confirms everything, literally, that I've been saying about Hawes from the very beginning. I said this, and people can go back and look. You don't believe me? I said this from the very beginning, that the whole thing wasn't real. It wasn't taken seriously on the left. They all hated them for reasons X, Y, B, and Z. I said it from the jump. People said, Karlyn, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just jealous that they get more views on social media than you. Oh, am I? Am I? Really? Because there are not one but two different communist groups completely and unequivocally denouncing the American Communist Party as completely fake and gay fascists. I win again. I am always right. Everyone else on the internet that tries to talk about the left is always wrong. I am always right. I am always proven right. It may take months. It may take years. But I am always 100% of the time proven right when I say stuff like this. And I just want that to be acknowledged. I just want it to be acknowledged. I don't think I'm asking too much. I take a lot of shit on the internet. I've had a lot of lies spread about me. I don't think I'm asking too much to say, when I'm right, can someone please just fucking acknowledge it and say it? I was right from the beginning. You were wrong, and I was right, and you might have feelings about the fact that you were wrong, and I was right, but that doesn't actually change the fact that you were wrong, and I was right, and you need to sit in your wrongness and be wrong and admit that you were wrong so that next time you learn to listen to me when I tell you something, and then I'm inevitably proven right in that thing, and you still don't want to fucking acknowledge it, but you were wrong, and I was right, and that's just the way it goes, and that's the way it's always going to go. Because I actually listen to the left. I actually listen to these people. I actually study these people. I actually track these people. I actually go to their events. You have a Twitter account, and you don't know shit about shit. You need to shut the fuck up and admit that you are wrong and sit in your wrongness and be wrong. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys for allowing me to have a little bit of a lighter day because I am actually really tired from staying up until 5 a.m. last night. So I'm going to go. I'm going to have an easy evening, and we're going to chill, and we're going to have happy hour tomorrow at 5, and I'm going to get some more beer. I've only had like a beer and a half, by the way. I'm not like drunk or anything, but I'm going to get some more beer tomorrow. We're going to do happy hour. I don't know what we're watching yet. If you have opinions on what we should watch, let me know. I'm more than willing to take suggestions. Otherwise, I will choose something, and you may or may not like the thing I choose. So, make suggestions if you have them. But until then, guys, take care. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.